There we go. Hello, everyone.
Well, yeah, Eric knows somewhat what's going on. So I'll back up and summarize big picture. So one of the cases that you've been working on was this new street drug, langsam, essentially German for slow. If you've seen the movie Judge Dredd, it's similar to the slow-mo drug in that. Um, and along the investigation in Vienna, you had consulted with at least one biochemist at the University of Vienna, but the police upper echelons had directed you to their own expert in the empire, this Ernst von Braun, which is basically just a polymath and expert in several different fields. But he was on sabbatical in Berlin. So after the battle with Janos Toth, one of the heads of the Carcass Syndicate, the Hungarian syndicate that operates out of Vienna, you decided to catch a ride to Berlin to investigate and anything else you could find out about the drug, as well as to consult with Dr. von Braun. There in Berlin, you were somewhat blocked by the local chief, Chief David Achtenberg, who just basically said he didn't want just any wild cowboys operating in his city. So he gave you a couple of tests. One was a practical test of your supernatural abilities fighting against the local superhero team that operated out of the Berlin Police Department, but also to do a local missing persons case. That being of this Professor Merton Jakob Marquardt, who taught at the Technical University of Berlin. And as it turned out, he was actually old friends with Dr. von Braun. He had actually been his lab assistant at times, and it seemed that they may have actually been working together on this project of Dr. von Braun's that he'd been on sabbatical for. So you started doing this investigation and found out that Merton had been kidnapped from his lab, or really Dr. von Braun's lab, by Thomas Steinhauser, the Tower Tom, as he's called, and the Golden Eagle motorcycle club, the Steinadler Motorrad Club, and that they had handed him off to. And actually, also in that you ran into an assassin, Samantha Klauberg, who was working with the motorcycle club, but you'd actually convinced her to become what, her informant or cooperative with the police. The club and Steinhauser had dropped Merton off with Hannah Fedor, who is the Berlin head or Berlin chief of the Carcass Syndicate. And it was actually on her desk that you saw the portrait from Janos Toth to her, basically saying like, to the good old times in Vienna, keep your chin up, kid. So there had been some sort of personal connection with them as well as working together in that syndicate. Hannah Fedor, you found out, was actually also had gone by the name Zeitschmied, or in English, Timesmith. So she was also had unique abilities, in this case, to actually control the flow of time. You got Merton out, and he'd said that he'd been working on this portal of some type with Dr. von Braun. The doctor had made some progress with some biological samples he pulled out of the portal, and actually told Merton to take his wife on a holiday down near Constance. And in that time, Dr. von Braun, as well as his notes and all the information, disappeared. And when you spoke with Martin after rescuing him and a little bit of time in the hospital, he basically said that he really thinks that the doctor has actually gone through the portal, either to continue his own research, because that's just the kind of crazy way the guy operates, also perhaps out of desperation, if he felt that someone was trying to make a grab for his notes, to bring all those notes with him. Merton is able to get the base components to get the lab back up and running. So this is like the lab that you'd investigated. Obviously, lots of power being harnessed through several different circuits and all pass through this one archway. A lot of it was damaged and burnt out. And Merton will be able to repair a lot of this, except for the one part he doesn't have, which is the catalyst. Essentially, they need this uh, isotope, the cesium 137, which is a rare and particularly nasty radioactive isotope of cesium, which they need as the catalyst to keep the portal open, essentially. This is normally produced in fission reactions, but as this is 1934 and nuclear physics is only a really freshly burgeoning field of physics, no one really knows how to get a fission reaction going. So the only known source of this material has been one supervillain who had operated back in the 1920s and actually hasn't been seen in some time. Older. And she goes by the name, or went by the name of the Eisenmacht, or the Iron Maiden, um, operating out of a castle in eastern Germany, so nowadays Poland, Breslau or Wałbrzych in the original Poland. Um, she had committed several crimes, most of them heists of different kinds, and in most cases stealing precious metals, rare earth material, uranium, whatever sort of unique property materials that she could get her hands on. But then at some point after a particular heist she did around 1925, yeah, 1925, she just, no one heard from her again. Uh, People who tried to scout out her castle, this Berg Eltz, had all gone missing, but there still wasn't any activity from it. And as no one, at least in the police forces or military, had been able to stop her in the past, the fact that she went quiet, they all decided to just leave well enough alone and not bother her or poke anything around the castle. And it's been quiet ever since. So you are heading out to Breslau to scout out, infiltrate this castle. You don't know what you'll find if everyone's just sort of dead and gone, but as one of her modus operandi was to build different kind of machines, including I guess what nowadays you would call a robot, if maybe steampunk or clockwork in nature, there still could just be automated defenses, and perhaps she's long gone, or the place could be deserted, or just old traps and stuff set in place. But they did not recommend a full blown assault. It would be more some sort of a heist. So you would headed on this long train ride out here to do this. On the train ride from Berlin to Breslau, the train was hijacked by a group of terrorists unrelated to this case, known as the Days, essentially people who had been wronged or hurt in some way, a friend, a relative who was kidnapped or killed or something, where the empire was at fault. And they were trying to get some sort of political attention from the empire to these tragedies as they see. So they give up their own name and identity, I mean, partly for their own security, but also to take on the identity of that day. So that day will live on in their minds and be communicated to others, similar to the book Fahrenheit 451, how the characters would memorize a book and essentially become that book. They would become that day and be able to rattle off everything that happened in the empire that day. They had taken over the train and had planned to drive it full speed into the Breslau train station, where it would plow through to the power station immediately behind it and possibly take out as much as half of the city. You would all stop them, were able to subdue all of the terrorists, or in some cases, throw them from the train as was necessary, especially towards the end, as the metamorph turned into his giant silverback gorilla form and knocked, who was it, Wednesday, clear off the front of the train. So you are all now arriving in Breslau, and it's the sort of aftermath of the events on the train, and then what's going to be happening in the town as far as getting prepped and scouting out the castle to make your actual assault on So as the story starts back off, we're still. Oh, and also for everyone else on the train, when you'd first gotten onto the train, you had wandered back to the first dining car, and there you would run into a small girl who had said that her dog was gone missing, or she had a dog, who said that her younger brother, Helga, had gone missing, and you had helped her search the length of the train. And eventually, when you reached the freight car, you found a box with noise and sort of bumping coming from it that you assumed was Helga hiding or pulling off some sort of hijinks. But in fact, it was just a doll with a recording set to make this noise. And at that point, she looked at you all and just waved and fell through this black hole in the floor. And that's when all of the terrorists popped out. And after mind dredging or essentially interrogating several of the terrorists, you found that she was some sort of superpowered mercenary who was hired to sweep the cars and get anyone, military or police or anything, who would be a potential trouble, to the back to the freight car where they could be quietly shot and taken out, or even the freight car just cut loose if necessary, so that the rest of the train could go on along its way. Um, and as much as you were fighting the rest of the terrorists on the train, she was gone by then. And it did seem from some of the other terrorists that she was hired only for that one job. She wasn't going to, well, she wasn't going to let herself die in the crash, as it were. So this is still late night, Thursday, July 12th, 1934. You, after defeating the rest of the terrorists, you check in with the engineers. They're all fine, maybe roughed up and slapped around a bit, but they reduce speed, get the train back to its normal speed, and as I said, you still had some time before reaching the station. You make a sweep of the train cars and find no more active threats. You move all the suspects back to the first, second class coach and essentially tied them all, or handcuffed them all to the seats here where they could be guarded. Then you checked in with the rest of the staff, made sure everyone else is okay. You checked with passengers, did perform first aid for minor injuries, and as well as stabilized Blitzman who'd taken a lethal shot from the sniper up on the roof. And then announced essentially to the rest of the car that everything was all clear, they were safe, and they would be pulling into the station. Upon arriving at the train station, you go out to the local police box, the Wachkasten, and call it into the local department. And you speak with the Polizei Hauptkommissar Egon Tiedemann. He actually has the name Egon. Uh, so he would be the chief inspector, essentially the local equivalent to your chief inspector Jakob Gordon of your Vienna police department. He sends several cars full of officers to assist, including two neighboring
Oh,
towns. The
well.
city is not all that big. They don't have a large staff, so they're pretty much pulling in all hands. A lot of local police departments, it's typical for them to listen, well, in the real world, listen to each other's radios. In this case, listen to each other's landline transmissions and what the dispatchers are described as going on, and support each other and back each other up. They put Blitzman on a gurney, take him to the hospital for treatment. They treat any of the injuries to passengers and staff, help the passengers disembark, begin conducting interviews, and then the rest of you all remaining help them secure the suspects. They take the dead to the morgue, the injured to the hospital under secure guard, and the rest of them to the three local jails just to have capacity for the sheer number of them. You walk the local officers through the train cars and describe the events of that evening, and report on the suspects that were thrown from the train, including the approximate time they were thrown from the train. And from that and the speed of the train, which the engineers have a log of, they're able to figure out roughly where it happened, call over to those local departments to have them go and secure the bodies, as well as take in any other additional evidence. Um, and with that, with all of that, you've basically handed off the checking for clues, checking the train, interrogations and stuff to the local departments. but you are still on scene now, and you can still investigate anything you want. So if you say, "I want to go check this out," or "I want to talk to this guy or interrogate this person," you don't have to. Like you have interrogated a few of the guys through a couple of the process in combat, and they are going to sweep for clues. But if there's anything you were thinking about or had ideas on and want to go to, feel free.
I, I think the biggest issue or question I have is, and I know these guys are general antagonists across the board. We've dealt with them, and they're kind of separate from these other organizations we're investigating.
Yeah. So in general, I mean the Yusuf, who was the person who had killed the Wagner family, had been an ex-member of the Kerkers crime syndicate and was definitely a career criminal, even though he didn't currently or at the time operate within any syndicate. So far, you have mostly been investigating the Kerkers, which is a crime syndicate. So this is, a large organization with into organized crime. Whereas some of these other organizations, like the Days or the Comedians that you ran into on that one bridge, these would be more like politically affiliated gangs, or back in the day, you'd say like anarchists of
right.
different kinds. People would have some sort of political bent. It's not about the crime. I mean, some of the comedians were, at least that one local outfit was a little more into roughing people up or having their way with people. But it's really more about a political ideology or something they're trying to get done
And
rather
that
than just
right,
mayhem for no
and
reason.
that's fair, but it's the whole tinfoil hat. Logistically speaking, did
True.
someone push a button somewhere else that put these people in motion to know we should be on this train? And I'm guessing it's all siloed and segmented. So these people have nothing to understand that there was like any like the woman who we're going to investigate did not have any connection to this. Even if she said, make the call, and someone called someone, and someone called someone else, and someone called someone else, and said, hey, leak this little thing that says these cops are showing up on this train so that these guys would show up. I'm not even going, like, I'm not even going to ask these guys about that. I'm just saying that my thought process, like a percentage in the back of my head is saying, so convenient these guys showed up here. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like,
and that's a fair point. There could always be a connection that even though there's no actual affiliation, at least that you've seen so far, and even though their motivations are different, that's not to say someone could have, made a anonymous donation to the Days and said, "Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you go hit this train?" Because they know you're going to be on that train. That's always a possibility
but
too.
I mean, they could have also just said, we follow the police blogs. We follow, like, there could be some like informant in Berlin, or there's some informant somewhere else that can report back to their anarchist organization and tell them where we are. I'm just kind of trying to like make sure that so you understand that I'm piecing a lot of this together in regards to notes that I'm taking, wondering, you know, possibilities, I guess.
Yep. And sorry, I was just replying to Taylor's having some computer problems, so you might jump
Okay.
on his laptop instead. No, and that's all good because, like I said, I plan out the story and the crime and stuff, but I like to leave little bits open. And sometimes when you guys give a suggestion for what you're thinking, I'll even go off of that and take it in a different direction. So feel free to throw out ideas because it might turn into an actual story.
Yeah. So I mean, just that's my thought. Like, there's nothing else I think we can get from these guys. Like, I get like we kind of like it was a contained terrorist action. But that's just so you know, like that's kind of where I'm thinking, and I'll let other people talk, so I don't take
Yeah.
up.
Anyone else? Yeah, other people you wanted to talk to, conductors or
Yeah, I
uh,
thought I'd like to talk to the guys in the locomotive
okay.
and get a sense as to when during the train ride um, they were taken over.
So when you had, I think Oliver Ramos had done a mind dredge on one of them, and there was also like some memory alteration charm used to, as well as just some straight up interrogations. In general, they said that they were all there to kind of keep everyone, from stopping the train, or I mean, not just the engineers, but also just the passengers. But they didn't want to have to activate essentially and have the guns out and be holding everyone's at gunpoint for 6 to 8 hours. They were just going to let everyone sleep and do their own thing, and then pop out at the end when the train was speeding up rather than slowing down. But you hadn't actually seen what was going on in the locomotive car, so not and they as they confirmed this, not that far out of Berlin, the Days did move into the locomotive and take it over and essentially hold the engineers at gunpoint so that they would guarantee they had control of the train. Especially because if that failed for some reason, if the engineers were able to scuttle the train, sabotage it in some way, then they could all just bail. And it just at least watching two engineers, which were supposed to be staying up all night and on duty, that wasn't so much a problem. Whereas, I mean, granted, towards at the end, they had shuffled all the passengers into this one car to try to get them all out of the way. But I mean, you've already seen oops, train roughly how many passengers. This is a lot of people to kind of hold at gunpoint for all that time. So they were trying to hold out. And when you guys got flagged and then were able to overcome your guys, it was like, okay, everyone's just got to activate and be out and ready with the guns, even if they weren't sure where you were all coming from.
The,
But the engineers did confirm they were essentially at gunpoint the whole time. Yeah.
the bigger mystery being the mercenary that was hired, and it was like, was the mercenary hired specifically just in case, or to specifically intercept us? Like, there's the logic that I'm trying to follow.
And you do have somewhat of an eye on that because it wasn't just interrogations; it was even from the mind dredge, where in theory they can't really lie. You could get mushy gray area feelings on things, but you are getting the straight dope that she was pretty much hired to sweep the train for any one that might show up. Now, the days do also operate very compartmentalized, so they all operate in cells where you only have one contact that might know each other or one that's able to distribute to like a dead drop, but they don't all just show up in big halls and have meetings and stuff. So as much as there was probably a person in charge of this operation on the ground or on the train, as it were, there was probably someone else back at whatever headquarters of the group that was issuing these orders. Now, the people on site, all, as far as they knew, thought that this mercenary was only there to sweep for any threats. It's possible that the people back at the head office, well, if there's a head office, that they knew you specifically were coming and it was really for you personally. But from what you've seen on the ground, it looks like it was for anybody. But again, and it's not necessarily being paranoid, that could be the case. Like I said, they do keep this.
Right.
That whole need to know basis is hardcore for them.
Just notes I'm taking in regards to as we've moved along in this whole campaign, understanding that with notoriety brings unwanted attention. We've done a lot of stuff that is now starting to be seen. Like any sort of superhero group, there is a sort of like, people are taking notice, and it's not always the good people. So you never
Yeah.
know if that's happening. So
And you're somewhat unique in that, I mean, Vienna was one of the first, and there are not many of you operating. I mean, Vienna and Berlin, the empire sort of has two capitals. It's sort of similar to Germany with Berlin and Bonn back in the day. So you are two of the big headers, and there's probably not maybe one or two other small outfits developing around. But you're also unique in that you're the first ones that actually left the city. You guys have been operating initially just within the bounds of the city, doing local crime. Now you're actually going, it's still within the empire, but the empire is still divided into states, just like the United States is. you're kind of going federal almost in a way, and that may attract its own attention. Like, oh, these aren't just guys stopping petty thugs and people grabbing old ladies' handbags. These guys are, roaming the entire empire, tracking every last thing down.
Right. So like newspapers, kids or people showing out of nowhere going, "Oh, the blue suit. I like," or whoever, Blitzman, whatever. Like, "Oh, I want your autograph." Like, this is the sort of thing we're gonna have to start dealing with soon. Where as the notoriety goes out, we're gonna have to deal with that. Like Eddie might actually have to sign an autograph. That'd be funny.
Oliver is okay with that.
He'll just poke him in the eye.
So here's the other thing I wanted to ask about, and that is, I wanted to know from the suspects, the people we caught, the days, if their plan was to run the entire train in through the station, or were they planning? And I'm going to try to do it as subtly as I can, which is a brick. And I want to know, were they going to do the whole train? Were they staying on the train when it hit? Or were they going to decouple the locomotive from the rest of the train and just send that careening in?
Mm. And you did also get that from the interrogations and stuff. So again, it should be colored a little bit more truthful. They did intend to go down with the ship, as it were. And you're guessing if a political statement was made, it's probably going to have statements by each of these individuals about, I mean, because they're named for their days, instead of being like signed by the 20 some or 30 some guys, it would just be a list of 20 some dates and what happened on that date. And that is their power. Like, if they just walk out on the street and said, well, I'm Monday, October 10th, 1929, and this is what happened to my sister that day, people are gonna be like, whatever. But if they did this horrible thing and they all went and died with it, and it's all in print, people are gonna read that, and then they might take it more seriously. And I think that's where they were going for. You'd say like, why, guys? That does seem not make sense, but I mean, these people have obviously lost something dear to them, and they'd almost rather be dead. And in this way, they can turn their actual pain into honesty, and I mean, to try to trade it for points and honesty, so that the public, the masses, would read what they did and say like, well, geez, if they killed themselves, maybe they really meant it. Like, could all 30 of them have just been a crazy whack job? Like, maybe there really is something going on. So yeah, they did, and you also didn't find anything like plans or a getaway car on anything else on the side of the road or anything like that.
So one of the things I was going to say is, I'm going to suggest to the local police to make sure that any manifestos or anything like that that comes out, that they do their best to keep it out of the press, so that it doesn't give them any notoriety. Because if they're willing to kill a bunch of people that are innocent, then they don't deserve to have their story.
That's an excellent point, and even in the real world, that's a problem still today. The press still publishes these people's photographs and their manuscripts and stuff, and that only all of the experts from psychologists to the actual law enforcement say all that does is entice them and get them to do it more. And Taylor, I started way back at the beginning, just retelling the story, bringing everyone back up to speed of why you're here now at the end of the train ride, arriving in. You are at the Breslau train station. The local police forces have shown up and secured the scene, and you're doing your last sweep before you dust hands and walk away. It is very late, and you have been up, since very early this morning. And so I'm giving everyone an opportunity to ask questions or investigate stuff that they want to. And your video just disappeared, so I don't know if you can hear me okay. Oh, you just dropped. Oh.
I was so excited. Taylor showed up, and then damn.
And I could tell he was on his other computer, so the first computer wasn't working. Now I'm wondering if it's connection problems and not that. Hopefully he'll reconnect. So yeah, so that's a good point. Actually, let me take that as a note too.
I had one of my students today joining class from his phone in his mother's car on the way somewhere. I'm like, cool, glad you're here.
I've had a couple of meetings where I was leaving the house late and I realized the meeting was at like 9 and not 9:30, and then I'm scrambling to like open WebEx on my phone and just call in from that. Okay, could the syndicate have tipped off the days?
Speakerphone and mute. Speakerphone and mute.
Days manifesto or statement. Read the press. Okay. That looks like he's connecting again. Hopefully it'll work. Anyone else? Any other suggestions or ideas before we wrap up with the train? All right. Let's see. Oh, I guess I'll wait. Hey, Taylor, are you still having troubles? Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think it works. I think we're good.
You are a little jittery. The audio sometimes in the video may be a little staggered, so maybe that's just the CPU isn't quite up to the snuff of the other one, or if you're having connection troubles.
Yeah, I'm using kind of like a crappy computer right now. I can't really jack in.
Well, I'm hearing you okay
at
now,
all, damn
so
it.
I think maybe it's only an occasional stutter. You're coming through okay here.
All right.
Was there anything else you wanted to investigate or ask people about, or had questions about what happened on the train?
Just mostly looking for that girl, but I'm guessing she's just long gone. And yeah, you even suggested that someone even picked her up and she was just gone. So I'm guessing there's no trace of her.
From interrogating or the mind dredge of the terrorists, it did seem her job was to sweep and get people to the car, and then she was out and would not participate in combat at all. There was something like in her whatever hiring letter saying you are hired, you have these responsibilities, and she had a clear point. I guess. Oh, what's it called when a musician like stays or performs at a stage and they want like 3 bags of only red M&Ms, like what a rider. Yeah, she basically had a rider saying that she would not participate in combat or combat exercises of any kind. It would just be to do the sweep and clear. Okay, hold on, I gotta go on mute. Non-stop text. All right. Okay, Mike's back. Yeah, and we got Taylor back on.
Apologies. Did I have to make a decision or?
No, just throwing out to see if. Yeah. So if no one else had anything else, we'll move on.
Well, I pretty much gave my monologue and wanted everyone else to do their thing. So yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Let's see. So. All right, so you're standing on the train platform, wrapping up, having handed off the scene, and you're watching these 3 towns worth of local officers crawling all over the train like an army of ants, gathering evidence. And you are approached by a Wachmeister Torbenwoller. So this is Constable Woller, who introduces himself. He gives you an update that says that Litzman, Lightning Man, is at the hospital. He's been treated and listed as stable, and he's currently resting now. And you can all check in on him tomorrow morning, but they're going to keep him overnight after having done some of the surgery on the one bullet wound that he had. Yeah, he's reported in good condition and sleeping. And he says that Chief Tiedemann had sent him to pick you up and bring you all back to the station house to give you at least a basic report in person before they find you someplace to sleep for the night. Let's see. And he has, I mean, it would be somewhat of like a larger truck or like converted van that they would use to if you have like a local SWAT team or something, essentially like a lot of guys to pile in, get them on site. It's that kind of a larger van. All guns. No, so lethal damage. There are some special rules of it. Sometimes it has to do with a particular bane that you can use, but it's not just like using a particular type of gun. So it is kind of a special attack. Usually, it comes out sometimes in the higher levels, or also honestly, just sometimes it's a GM device. So it's a way of doing having a bunch of guys be dangerous, but maybe one be like a real threat. Because uh, unlike Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, where you still have to heal up and actually take rest periods, in Open Legend, as long as you have 15 minutes of just rest with nothing happening, you're pretty much back to full because your hit points are really representing you being defeated, not literally killed or an arm cut off, but just like tired or just morally beat down, can't handle anymore. And lethal damage is one that like it does the damage and it stays there until you get actual proper rest. So you might see something like that showing up in some cases.
Hey, Kurt,
Yeah.
are they putting my character under for the surgery or whatever?
Yeah, so and this would be from your aspect. After everyone had kind of cleared everything, you're still able to operate. It's not like you're dying, losing health or bleeding or something. But this would be like a serious injury. So you'd be kind of like holding your chest, shooting your lightning and running around. After everything was cleared, the rest of the team kind of secured you. Got bandages on it, stopped the bleeding. And then when the police showed up to start, securing the scene and actually helping anyone who was injured, they pretty much got you in an ambulance and just took you right to the hospital. As much as you're stable, there they did surgery, so any fragments of the bullet they were able to pull out. They gave you some stitches, they gave you some medication, like a broad spectrum antibiotic, and then just got you on bed rest for the night. So from checking in now until tomorrow night, that'll be your 24 hours where you'll be back to full. But for tonight, you'll be essentially at the hospital and then just listening in on what these guys are doing right now.
Okay, so when Blitzman wakes up from the anesthesia, he checks himself out of the hospital.
Okay. Let's see.
And then goes looking for the rest of the crew.
Okay.
Whenever that works in.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can use that. I'll do that.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. So he picks you all up in the van and drives you to the station house. Along the way, he gives you a briefing of the city of Breslau. So, simple statistics, the local, crime statistics, what's been on the rise and whatnot, town history, some of the basics that you have heard about the Iron Maiden and the history of them being the local city, saying that she never really messed with the local city. It was always kind of far flung heists of different train transports and stuff. Yeah, hours of paperwork. That's it, and that's is one of the cases of being a police officer. So it gives you somewhat of the background of just the local area to kind of acquaint yourself. This is a bit of a shift from Vienna to Berlin to another city, and it is a much small. I mean, you could barely call it a city, I guess, in a way. He also comments about how the days. I mean, they haven't even really heard of him there, and there are notices and stuff that goes out. The cat wants to do some investigating as well because they're all.
Well, it's Katie being silly. She's
yeah,
trying.
no. We always like.
It's Katie.
We never mind seeing cute kitties or Katies showing up on the stream.
Distracted Kurt. He's completely like, I can't. Where was I?
Well, whenever I have to go into exposition, I have this huge outline of notes, and then sometimes I lose my place in my OneNote. As much as there are notices that go out about these kind of organizations, like the Days or the Comedians, just like you guys had never seen the Comedians before in Austria, or at least in Vienna, and yet they seem to be really big in Berlin, having come down from Hamburg, where they seem to be operating out of mostly. For a small you are in the far-flung outreaches of the empire. I mean, you are in what is now Poland. I mean, this part of Poland used to belong to Germany back in like the 1200s or so. You are definitely out on the outer rim, and as he said, like he hasn't heard of any of these outfits, and he's curious as to coming from the big city. What are your impressions about what happened on the train? I mean, in a way, he's kind of fishing for he seems like he's fishing for a fun story, but also he's just curious about like how does it work with how do you get 30 people to agree to all commit suicide and kill a trainload of people? Like, what does it take? And then what is it like to fight someone like that? It's different than, when some guy grabs a purse, you get a gun on him, he's like, all right, it's not worth the 20 Reich marks or whatever to die for, but how do you face someone like that? And it throws open again, you can respond as you want.
I say, well, one of the big things was no matter how much we said, put your guns down, they didn't even come close to complying. So we just had to do whatever we had to get them unconscious, basically. And that's what we had to do.
Right, and I follow up off of Shooting Star's statement and say, listen, my motive is always incapacitate, not pain, not hurt. And you can only do so much sometimes when your opponent, all they care about is inflicting pain. So there's only so much you can do.
Anyone else have any comments or stories or things they wanted to say? Okay. Let's see. So,
Taylor, you're muted. Come on, I know you have something to say. Please say something.
well, no, Taylor's unmuted now, but I don't hear anything, so I don't know if you're not saying.
You can type it.
Are you typing in chat? Oh, so the guy who you essentially knocked off the train, he probably went under the train. I guess you probably would have been there long enough that they could have gone back and at least confirmed that they found the body. As far as the rest of the people thrown from the train, you had reported to the local officers essentially around the time of night that it was that they were all thrown, and it all did seem to happen just before or after that one tunnel. So from the location of the tunnel as well as just the parts of them, the speed that the train was going and the amount of time, they were able to calculate roughly where the bodies would have been, and then called the local departments in those areas to go and investigate, either to secure the body or actually look and see if any of them had tried to make it away. If they'd actually survived the landing, if they'd tried to book it out and gotten away. So if there's nothing else, then
I mean, I guess the main thought is to emphasize the fact that being police officers, like incapacitation is the most important thing. But beyond that,
yeah. Oh yeah. I guess he was also asking about the days themselves, because like with anytime you effect an arrest, where there's a couple of guys there always appears to be that, and it's always guys. There always appears to be that one guy who's kind of like the alpha. There's always the two of the three guys are always going to look at the big guy, and they're going to make the call. So it's all about getting that guy, like shutting him down, and the other guys will fold with him. Did it seem like they had any kind of leadership or chain of command, like lieutenants and stuff?
No, I guess to wit, we would say like they had an operation they were willing to follow, and it didn't matter who fell. Like, like it just seemed as if no matter who we met, the operation was going underway, and that was that. Like, there was no person we could stop this whole thing. As Shooting Star had stated earlier, you could say as much as you want about standing down. There was no standing down. Even if you could say, oh, we took the guys out in the back cabin who were like seemed to be the leaders, didn't seem to make a difference. They just were doing what they needed to do, and we had no choice.
Mhm. And then too, it usually if you split up suspects and get them alone in a room, you eventually one will cave and chat on the other, even if most of them stand fast. There'll always be that one guy who just ends up giving up the others. Were you able to actually interrogate them? You'd think that a group like this would be pretty tight if they're willing to die together. I mean, were you able to get any information out of them? And was it out of interrogation or effect? The enhanced interrogation, as you
Well,
say.
the other Mike would have said, "What's that? Alma Dieter."
Yeah, yeah.
He would have said he did that mind dredge. He's the one who did it, right?
Yeah. Alma Dieter was I think the one. No, Oliver Ramos had also used. She had used prescience to do mind dredge.
Right.
Oliver Ramos had also used influence to do charm, memory alteration.
Right. So we mentioned all that
too.
and say, we tell them the results of that interrogation and how fanatical these people were.
Yeah, he seems to. He's like a little wide eyed, like he's kind of real. You see it in his face. He's kind of realizing this is the level you're dealing with. That when people are operating at this level, just some beat cop asking questions with his little notepad is going to have a hard time making headway when it takes mystical powers to read people's minds to find out what was actually going on behind the scenes. And I guess he said so. At least from this mystical interrogation, I mean, were you even able to get anything? I mean, I guess you got the plan, but I mean, did they say why or any of the details? I mean, this all seems so crazy. I mean, his whole city. He's like, the whole city could have been blown up, and this is what was at stake. Like, did anything come from this? Like, details or strangeness from the, or was it just a bunch of guys getting on a train? Was there anything else funky about it?
No.
Don't
know what to tell you.
That's in character with Oliver Ramos. To say so, he seems he's not too young, but he does seem younger and maybe fresher faced. He is just a constable, so he is just like the guys at the base level that you're working with without much experience, and even being a sergeant in a small town, you're going to have a few years under your belt, but when it's a small town, it's like how many cows did you have to chase down that got lost from their fields, rather than how many terrorist organizations of 30 people hijack a train bound for your little small hamlet or whatever. So good all stuff. He thanks you for kind of filling him in. The guys out in the burbs who don't have to deal with the stuff in the big city, and kind of he almost kind of admits he's kind of happier to not work in a big city where it's this kind of level of craziness. He more enjoys the quiet. So with that, he essentially arrives at the police station. He pulls the van marked number 2, up front to the main door, um, and says to head on in, see the desk sergeant. You have to check in the desk sergeant no matter who you are. But once he clears you and they have your badge numbers down, you'll be having a clear run in the station house going forward. It's not going to be like Berlin. And then after you check him, the guest sergeant just head straight back to the chief's office because he wants to see you all, essentially all of us, immediately. He says, also, please tell the chief for him he has to pull the car around to the back to the motor pool to tell Otto that the oil's running low before he can head in. And he doesn't want the chief to think he's lollygagging or just shooting the shit. Like there's really something wrong with the car, and he'll be right in as soon as he can. And it almost says like, don't start the interesting report without him. So you get out, and Bullard drives off, and you head inside. You see the desk sergeant. You do have to show your badges and your identity papers, but once they note everything down, the Germans are all big on records for everything. He takes down all your information, and then you've pretty much got clearance to their house is your house, their station house at least. So he waves you over to the police chief's office. With almost every officer, and not only this station but the other two towns, the station house is really pretty empty. It normally would be empty on the emptier side around this time of night, but for everything that's going on, there's almost nobody in here because everybody is out at the train station checking down the train.
What time is it?
Sorry? Yeah, so I mean, it's getting more towards like 11 midnight, 1 a.m. at this point. I think it was one of those you left at like 7. It's supposed to get in kind of in the middle of the night. You might sleep on the sleeping one of the sleeping cars and then check in the hotel, and it's kind of like their equivalent of a red eye. Almost say. You're introduced. Introduced himself is Polizei Hauptkommissar Egon Tiedemann. Welcomes you here. Says he wish he could meet you all under better circumstances, but in short, just thank you for saving his town. From what he's heard over the landlines from the officers on the scene of what happened, and he's eager to hear about what was going on with all that. If you have anything to say to him.
He looks like number 2. I'm sorry. I've been re-listening to the Bobaverse books, and I don't know if you've ever listened to the Bobaverse books or read them.
It's on my list, but not yet.
It's so good. It's just like good sci-fi in general, but like number 2, the joke with number 2, you would get it if you read it. But yeah, he looks because he has the 2. I'm just being that guy, I guess.
No worries. So
is he asking for like what more do we know beyond what we put in our reports or something else?
Well, so you haven't really written any formal reports at this point. At the scene, the officers showed up. You told them what happened, and then what needs to get done. Like we need to, help the injured, take the prisoners who are secured to the jails. Just get everything done and let them know what happened. And they're obviously radioing back saying, "Hey, we're gonna need more people. This is what happened." And so it's all kind of word of mouth. So he's looking for just like your broad overview, or anything else you would say, like if you're going to tell him about
the main concern is the fact these people were willing to die, and therefore anyone looking to liberate them from any sort of jail or confinement are also willing to die. So you should probably be pretty damn close to the vest in regards to who these people are. I get the press can do the press, the free press, etc. Like Eric was saying earlier, but you have to be very concerned about these prisoners. These are a different kind of prisoner than your normal prisoner. Like any sort of word getting out that they were captured, and I get it. Their cells outside of this may see that the end result is they didn't destroy the end station and explode, but then they're going to be looking to try and figure out why that didn't happen, and they're going to be coming after these people to try either A, to kill them, or B, to liberate them. So you've got a very unique situation on your hands, sir. That's my say.
Yeah, we'll talk about how you got to keep the stories out of the press as well, because these guys each had a day that was important to them, and they want to get that story out, and that was why they were doing this, to get that story out. They probably have some drop dead delivery thing that's supposed to be in the paper anytime, because this was supposed to be a big explosion and a huge news story. So watch for that too.
Mm-hmm. So around this time, I'll basically play it that like it's like Blitzman was taken to the hospital. He had the surgery. He was put in his bed, essentially told to sleep for the night. They wouldn't let him go, so he kind of checked himself out. He's got his bandages and the stitches are kind of still fresh, but kind of threw the fedora, the hat on, just snuck out, maybe flashed someone a badge to get past them, and just rode one of the local, the streetcars, essentially public transport, and arrived at the police station. And he's just come in and it had checked in with the desk sergeant when you guys just start talking to the chief. And I guess before you go into your actual story of the train, I was just going to say what you're walking in, you're doing the pleasantries and the little informal bits. I guess what did you say about Voller and his comments to you? About him pulling the car and then coming in and waiting for him. And essentially what Voller had asked you. And that's what I was going to start with. Or I guess however you want to say that, however you want to relay Voller's message to him. Or I'll just I can just speak.
No, it's fine. I want to say something, but I want to let everyone else kind of like speak to it if need be, because Eric has been very vocal, and I want to give him that opportunity.
I'm sorry. Who are we talking about? The guy who asked us about the whole thing, or something else? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So the Constable Voller.
Oh yeah, okay, that's who it was. Yeah,
you'd have that conversation, and
right.
when he dropped you off, he'd said, "I'm going to pull the car around to the motor pool, but like tell the chief I'm coming. Like I don't want to miss anything."
Oh yeah.
Think he's dawdling. So I was just going to say when you do your intros, I guess however you wanted to say that, what
Voller has asked all these questions. Maybe you want to talk to him, type of thing, or do you want us to reiterate to you, so to speak? Is that what you're kind of looking for?
Oh yeah, or however you would say it. If you want to like say it like that, I mean that works out too. Or I was just going to say, here's the chief. You would probably come in and say, "Oh, hey, by the way, Voller said he's going to be in 5 minutes." If you're going to say something like that.
I mean, that's kind of how my character would handle it. Is flat out like, "Listen, chief, I get it.
I understand the difficulty. I'm prompting you to say like just a formality that you normally wouldn't think much of, but it just happens to have something to do with the story of the dialogue. So, if I just as I describe it, when you walk in, say, "Oh, hey, we're from Austria department from Berlin. We're here to report. Oh,
Sure.
by the way, Voller said he's going to be in." And when you mention that, however you mention that, he gets a very confused look on his face, and he asks you, who are you speaking with?
Oh.
Okay, so that's fair, and I'll just describe like the driver, the lieutenant, the guy who said it was like basically your second in command, and I'll describe how he looks very quickly. And we gave him this information, and this is the information. I mean, I guess verbose information.
I'm glad we didn't say anything about the days specifically. We were very quiet about that.
Well, he did ask about that, somewhat saying he hadn't heard about them, but yeah, he did introduce himself as Constable Torben Voller, who worked at the department. He's not necessarily anyone supremely in charge. You gather he's like the guy the chief sends to go pick someone up or do some of the busy work and whatnot. And he did seem to be a little bit more green. Upon you saying his name again, the chief stands up and shouts outside of his office, yelling "Voller," and you hear some movement, and this guy comes around the corner, who looks very much like him, except he has an eye patch on, some facial injuries, and a little bit of a beard growing on, which is technically not to uniform standard, but it's allowed within some measure of reason. And then they basically ask you to reiterate, what exactly was going on. And you had described, well, yeah, you sent him to pick you up. You were talking about the case on the way back, at which the chief says that Officer Voller, he is Constable Torben Voller here, who was recently injured in the line of duty. He's been restricted to desk duty only. He also had a concussion. He's not allowed to drive. And is kind of like saying, is this actually? I mean, he's starting off almost leaning on like, did my man disobey orders and go and
but no, but it's
up?
like to wit, I would have flat out said, okay, yes, where's that car? Like you're moving too slowly here. Like did that car?
Yeah. So no problem. There's some nonverbal.
Like
So you're essentially escalating to, and the chief is right on the same wavelength with you. Is already standing and basically like everyone like out after
point
them.
me to it. I'm
Yeah.
zipping.
Yeah. So you are all now running to the front of the station and are running into Blitzman coming in, and you have half of that. Hey, it's good to see you. Are you okay? We gotta go. we're after this guy. And as you're running out of the station, you're basically saying, this officer picked us up. He dropped us off. Now it looks like it wasn't who we thought it was, and we're after his car. Now, you don't actually have a heads-up display and a GPS where you can see where everything is, but I have to give you some idea of what the area looks like from what you've seen. So you were essentially picked up at the train station, far to the north. You had driven down this main road, pulled off onto this side street in front of this being the police station, and it does have these small, kind of alleys and stuff behind it. You didn't actually see, that the employee parking was around the corner. Voller had pretty much pulled up here, dropped you all off, and then you just saw him drive off. Now, everyone make a perception check for going back and what you saw when you got out of the car. And we'll go out front. And so here is the front of the police station. Obviously, this is today. It is currently Poland, so everything's going to be in Polish. It is also today, so across the street there is a McDonald's. All right,
it's
rolled a
Whack
7.
Arnold's. It's Whack Arnold's, not McDonald's. My perception was garbage at a 9.
I found that hilarious that just some random police station in Breslau that I picked up literally had a McDonald's across the street. It doesn't, but so you are all running out of here. This is where he dropped you off at, and this is where he started to drive off in this direction to the west. Sorry, let me pull up my thing. So let's see. So you said blue suit, you had a 9?
Yeah, rolled garbage happily. As much as it would have helped us, but right now, I'll take that.
And everybody else, and everybody is here at this point.
15.
And Lars, sorry for he was essentially like you got the surgery and stuff. You didn't really have the rest. Just take half of your lethal damage off, so you still have half of it there, but you at least got some of it back. And I'm sorry, everyone else. You go ahead with your perception checks.
Eric got a 15.
Okay. 43.
Holy crap! See, Oliver Ramos was not distracted by the honeyed words of this young policeman, and he was focused purely on what was going on.
He even remembers the license plate number.
Oh, I hope so.
Let's see. And then Taylor and Lars, I didn't hear yours. 7. Crap, Taylor's having still audio problems. Well, this will be a lot of, I guess that maybe downside is a lot of story and things you're saying you're doing rather than actual combat, but we can make it do with chat or whatnot if you still have audio problems. And sorry, Lars, what was your roll?
I didn't roll because I wasn't in the car.
Excellent point. That's right. You are there now, but you weren't there.
Weren't we rolling a perception for the?
Yeah. So blue suit and metamorph. We're not really paying attention to the details. Shooting Star had sort of noticed when he had been driving, but Oliver Ramos saw all of it. So, yes, you do have you know the actual make and model of that particular van. It's used in different police forces. So, so oh, it's one of the the troop carriers or whatever it is. You do know it was marked as number 2. That was painted on all the different sides. It had what appeared to be a you're more likely to think it was an actual police car that was stolen rather than a non whatever police car that was painted up to be one. That would be kind of too difficult to fake. You did get the exact license plate, and most notably, Oliver Ramos he did round the turn down the street. So he didn't head straight west. He did turn north up this alleyway. So, I mean, in theory, what he said, he was going to bring the truck around back to the motor pool, which is inside here. And Eddie did notice he did take a turn right down this street. Sorry, I didn't see. Let me pull up my chat on my other window so I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, but he could be long gone at this point. I mean,
it has been a little bit of time, although it is somewhat driving on back streets. You never know.
I would like to go full haste and make that zip around to see if he's anywhere along that route or if he's in the motor pool. I know that's going to take a couple of rounds.
Yeah, if you're guesstimating for time, I mean, he probably, he might have, say he just drove around in circles. He maybe could have done like 2 full laps in this time. So it is going to be a stretch. It's not like you're going to get to the end of the corner and see him right here, but that is totally something you can do. So, and we're not going grid. This is more, I don't know, our old school D&D, just describing where you're headed or what you're trying to do. So yeah, like Eric, you're going to kick into full speed, make your triple movement at your full movement speed, hoofing it down this street, and then down this one looking for this car. Is anyone else, you can describe what you want to do. If you want to follow him, go the other way. If you want to go back into the station to try to get to the motor pool that way, or wherever you want to go, just tell a story.
I'm gonna try this real quick and hopefully it works right away. I'm gonna try telepathy and do the relay thing again.
Let's see.
Just before everyone starts.
Yeah. So
yep.
Now in this case, it is a little bit more time sensitive. So I'll say you can do it at let's say that it's half the normal disadvantage. If you were trying to do it in melee in a 6-second window, you did have where you're in the chief's office and you're all running outside together and you're kind of trying to bring your group telepathy online. So you do have a little bit more time, but it's not like you can take 10, as it were. So I guess for everyone in the group, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to.
I don't. No, it's just at power level 6. So at
at power level 6, it just kicks off.
It's just a relay. Yeah.
Is it just normal straight roll to establish it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So just do your normal roll. Actually, in that case, I'll leave because normally you could do this in combat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll actually give you advantage 1 on it because you've got a little time to bring it online.
Okay.
You probably got like 2 rounds, 12 seconds or so.
Okay. Shit, I need more dice.
And I mean, we even going round by round, you could always try again if it does fail.
No, I definitely got it. I only need a 22, right? Or is it a 20? No, it's a
power
22.
level 6. I think that's 22. Reference difficulties. Yeah, 22.
Yeah, I rolled a 16 on the D20 or 5, so that's 21. Then I rolled an 8 on the D8, so.
Yeah, so you made it then. Okay, so you all have this telepathic link up, and I think as we said, the only distance limitation was on initially establishing it, like your range to Oliver Ramos.
Yep.
But once it's established, as long as he sustains it, distance isn't really an issue unless you're really pushing it. But we should test me if hey, I'm going to take a flight down to Italy and see if the link establishes. Maybe we'll argue that at that point. So you've got it all up and running. So anywhere else, anyone else wants to run?
So I'm essentially, Kurt, what I want to do is I want to use my rocket boots and jump. I want to drop my alderbrella and I want to jump straight up on top of the roof and try to move towards the highway. So whatever amount of space, because I can move my regular speed at flight speed. So I'm gonna do a jump up on top and move. So I jump, but like a double move to just
Yeah, that's all I was gonna say. It's probably gonna take like a double move, and you're kind of actually this will be interesting. You're kind of pushing your rocket boots to the limit this time. Like you're not sure you really tested how high you could go. What if you try to do a double move or a triple move under haste or something? But you do just make it up. Just because it is a little bit of a lip and stuff. We'll just do an agility check just for grins. And in theory, Eric, that's also an option for you. You can also run up the sides of buildings. So you have climb as part of your thing, in case you wanted to do that.
But the reason I didn't in this case was because I thought maybe he'd park on the side street.
Oh no, true. No, I don't want to
that's why I
change your
didn't
course. I just wanted to give you options because in case we'd forgotten about that.
My favorite rolling a 1 on a 20, however, exploding dice. Okay, so a little better. 15 total.
Okay, not bad, and it is pretty much within. It looks like within the 60-foot limit. So yeah, you would have made it in any case, just sort of like how well or how graceful. So you do make it, but you did feel that sinking feeling of the lift starting to taper off just at the end of that double arc, and you kind of make one of your mental notes like, oh, I gotta up the PSI on the left booster. It's feeling a little laggy, but you do make it up on top of the building. And anyone else, what you're trying to do?
I'm gonna activate my haste.
Okay. And is there anywhere you move to, or a direction, or?
I'm basically just wherever the group is going because I don't know where that car was or where it went or anything.
Okay. I mean, they're somewhat bringing you up to speed, at least saying, they were dropped off by this officer. He drove around back. We're looking for them. And at least you can, I mean, Shooting Star is shooting off in his direction. So you probably chase him as you're probably one of the only people that could almost keep up with him in a way, even though you're lagging behind it, even with your lightning teleport.
Right. So I'm just gonna, without teleporting, I'm gonna just move my normal hasted movement then.
Okay. And Eddie or Taylor?
I think
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can I turn into a bird? It's like a little tiny bird. Fly speed 60. Well, actually, if I go giant bird, I can go 80. So why not just go giant bird at this point, and I'm just gonna follow after.
Yeah, I do have your two
blue suit.
Your giant eagle and then your owl, the two different sizes you can turn into. So yeah. So you want to like turn into the giant eagle, and then is there any direction you want to fly?
Well, blue suit just rocketed up on top of the building, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna kind of just follow him and kind of go up and try to just get like a good view of the area and see if I can find what Shooting Star saw.
All right. So yeah, the blue suit essentially like ran up and rocket jumped up on top of the roof here. I guess can't really make it too much. Shooting Star went shooting down the road and is running up this way. Blitzman is kind of running after him also at haste. We'll do this. Yeah, and this is more story rather than actual blocks and stuff. So you would turn into your eagle, and then What, just essentially running and flying in this rough direction? Maybe I lost audio. It was a little choppy the last time. So we'll say
sorry.
Oh, I can hear you now.
I'm trying to draw on this. Sorry, it's tough.
Taylor, I just dropped video and just go audio.
I'm kind.
I turned on annotations in case you wanted to use that.
Put me just like 40 feet above blue suit.
Okay, so you're flying, but you're kind of sticking to overhead where he is.
Yeah.
Okay. And Oliver Ramos, anything you want to do? Point and laugh.
I'm actually just gonna stay where I am, in front of the building, just in case he comes back around for whatever reason.
Okay. When you were running from the chief's office outside, you were kind of bringing shooting or Blitzman up to speed what was going on. And when the chief heard the thing about the motor pool, he headed back inside. So he says, "I'm going to essentially run it from the inside out." So he's running back inside. He's going to run through here and then out the back door. So you all set off. Shooting star. You round the corner. There are cars here and there, but I mean the van is pretty unique looking from the color of the paint job to just literally the big boxy size of it. I mean, if you imagine a FedEx truck, that's roughly the size and shape of the vehicle that you're looking for. And you don't see it on the street, or at least parked on the street so far.
I'm also going to be looking for any vehicle that potentially could house a bomb.
Okay, good point.
Size bomb, enough to take out half of the police station or whatever.
Yeah, and then that's spot on too, because the very first time you ran into the Days, they had parked a large truck full of fertilizer explosive in front of the big, I can't remember the name of it. It's the biggest, the fanciest Catholic church in all of Vienna, and that was the initial run-in with them. So that has played to their MO at least. So we'll say you've essentially cleared up to here. A blue suit. You're all essentially on the roof, so you can run wherever you want to go. You just want to describe it.
It'd probably be a jump again, like because it's that whole like get me the the arc or whatever. Just trying to move faster. I guess like my same space, but it'd be like boom, I land and boom, I jump again. Again, moving towards the highway on the right hand side.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you essentially land here, and then you're continuing to do your, like rocket jumps, like heading out to this corner to spot.
No, more towards the front side of the building, not at the angle, because it's less space.
Going like here to this corner.
Yeah. So I want to do that, like with the umbrella out, basically like scoping and looking to see if I see the car.
Right, and this is the major highway. These are all back roads, and a lot of them even just feed back on each other. To see maybe a half mile down, or half a kilometer down the road if it's speeding off in either direction.
Correct.
Okay. And and Taylor dropped. I'll just essentially, since he was saying he was following you, I'm going to say he's essentially flying above and shadowing you, so essentially running the same course. And then Shooting Star, you pretty much get out about here down the street. There are only smaller cars and not that many parked here, although the employee parking lot is a bit full from all the officers that came in and then headed on scene, assuming they weren't using their own personal cars. And then Blitzman, you're a little lag behind, but pretty much on that street too. You're also seeing the cars here. So far, it's only small passenger cars, and you can see through the windows, so you don't see anything unless it's in like an engine compartment or something like that. You'd have to stop and search each of the cars. But I guess for the two of you from here, where do you want to go? Do you want to go like towards the parking lot, out here to the left or right, or circle around back, or whichever way you want to go?
I want to go to the end of the intersection, hang a right and basically get into the motor pool area.
Okay. And Blitzman?
So, Kurt, the general consensus is the car went down this street?
So enough from what they all gave you. The guy, they said that they were all in the truck. They had come down the highway. He had dropped them off here, and he told them he was going to drive around into the motor pool and then come inside. And Oliver Ramos did say he did see him rounding the corner. So either he did do that, or he at least came up this way, parked and ran, or took off down any of these streets.
All right. I'm going to get up to that intersection and look in all directions.
Okay. And Taylor, can you hear me okay? I just, Blue Suit had run to the end of the building. I just had you flying overhead. Was there anywhere you wanted to go or look at? Literal eagle eyes.
Trying to unmute.
I can hear you okay.
Oh, you can hear me right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It says I'm muted right now. All right, never mind. Everything's just running so slow.
Actually, your voice sounds better now than it did before, if anything.
All right. Did someone see anything? What was seen last?
No one's seen anything yet. Blue Suit had jumped up onto the roof, and then Rocket jumped over to the corner where once he gets there, he's going to try spying up and down the highway. Because if this guy had tried to take off, these are all back streets. He probably would have gotten on the highway and booked it north or south. And maybe he's a half a kilometer away, but you might actually be able to spot him. And then Shooting Star and Blitzman are whipping around the back end to check the back and the motor pool. And then the chief is running through the motor pool to the back to intercept, to try to catch him in between if he is anywhere in there. A Blitzman's going to check these 4 intersections here.
So you said it could be north or south. No one's really checking south. Maybe I should kind of go.
Yeah, the last time he was spotted, he was rounding this corner, heading north, but he could have gone anywhere from there.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I'll head northwest then.
Okay.
I'll just book it. I could go 160 with just a double move.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you could really cover some distance and height. You're already like the building's like 60 feet high, and you're like 40 feet above that. So you're pushing 100 feet almost, and you can also see at quite a distance. And Blue Suit, you see the Metamorph veer right and turn north. So you figure he's probably scanning that way if you want to focus on scanning south and east in your check. So actually, we'll start with that. So you do get to the corner, you see him heading north, and you can essentially look south down the highway or anywhere else you want to focus. Just describe what you're looking for, or how are you looking, or where are you looking.
Just
and then
looking
we'll do
for
a perception check.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the car. I mean, nothing else to look for.
Just a moving truck of that size.
Like that.
Okay.
The guy speeding away essentially is what I'm looking for. I get it. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just give me a perception check.
Oh, well, that means... Explosion. Okay. 19.
Okay. You do make an accurate assessment of the scene. You really see no movement on any of the side roads. And on that main road, there's only maybe one car, even at a kilometer out. And the size is all wrong. Typical cars in this area really are on the small size. And this is such a big box. Even at night with the street lights and stuff that there are, you would see some kind of vehicle, and you don't spot anything. You can pretty much rule out, this whole southeast corner as anything being.
So telepathically, yeah, I can talk. Telepathically, can I say clear to the southeast?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I even forgot. So you relay, kind of like southeast, south in the south highway clear, or not nothing spotted. And then Taylor, you're sweeping north, and you can really see a lot further. And as a bird, you're also very sensitive to movement of any kind because that's how they typically hunt. So just give me a perception check with advantage 2. I mean, it is night, but you are looking. You have good eyesight, and you're actually looking for a target which, well, in theory, should be lit up. It should have its running lights on. I guess that's always a possibility if they turn the lights off, but they'd have a difficulty driving in that way.
That's a 24.
Okay, you can actually see several kilometers to the northeast. And again, you see like maybe 2 cars driving, but the size is far too small. And even the side roads off of that highway, you don't see any movement there, like someone was ducked off or squealed and pulled off. So the same thing, you're able to relay pretty much northeast clear. There's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
Shooting Star, you make it round the bend to the motor pool door and you're able to open the door and look inside, and you see the chief kind of like as he's coming out of the door into the area. And you do see this guy you would assume is this auto that works there, kind of perking his head like, what's going on? And the chief is shouting to him about, have you seen Bowler? Have you seen, this car number 2? And he says, no, I haven't seen a thing. It's been quiet since all the troops rolled out to go check out that train thing. He's just tinkering on his vehicles. Um,
So I'm going to report over the connection that not in the yard, in the motor pool, or on the side streets that I can see.
And give me just a perception check yourself too.
21.
Okay, yeah, more than enough. It's all difficult because everyone's kind of like running and shouting, and as much as fast as you are, you're a little bit out of breath as you're kind of whipping around corners and stuff. You also gather that this van number 2 is one of their vans, and it is not in the motor pool, and it was reportedly at the train station with all the rest of you. So you're thinking whoever this person is, they probably grabbed one of their actual buses. And as much as the suspect did round this corner and head up this way, he does not appear to have stopped anywhere on this street or in the motor pool at all. Blitzman, you make it out to the intersection, and then give me a perception check, just watching, in this direction, essentially. I mean, you said all directions, but if Eric's running this way, you could probably favor your other signs.
9.
9. You
As in
don't
9.
notice.
I saw nothing.
Yeah. Auf Deutsch. Ich habe nichts gesehen. Well, nicht gesehen. Oh, 9, yeah. 9 for no. You don't see any cars. You don't hear any engines rolling, and you don't see the truck. You're unable to spot the truck. So you can't see anything in that direction.
Kurt, what do I see straight down the road?
Straight down this way?
Like if I were to continue north.
I'm going to say this is probably a building, and this is like a parking lot in a private way. So this would be some kind of, government or town building, and this would just be a driveway leading into a parking lot around this building.
And I assume just from where I am, I can kind of glean that's the case, right?
Yeah. I mean, they would probably have signage out front. You can see the building there. And then usually they would have some kind of road sign indicating there's no throughway. Actually, there might even be one on the street here. It's usually, it almost looks like a hammer. It's like a white line and a thick red box, basically saying there's something here, but there's no way to leave that way. But
Gotcha.
you hear it's also possibly could have pulled back here and parked or hiding or something as much as he could have taken off in the other direction. So you can go from there whatever you want to do.
I'm gonna turn left and go west.
And head down this street this way?
Yeah.
Okay. And Shooting Star, what are you doing next for your movement? And you also make like lock eyes with the chief, so he sees you and he sees you swept around the other side. And
Yeah, and
there.
I just shake my head no, like I'm not seeing anything.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn around and go north through the trees here, across the street into whatever this, like thing with pavement and arrows and stuff is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, we'll say there's some like demolition from an old building that was being torn down, and it's like the old, driveway. It's like the building would have been here, that was knocked down. So it's like a construction site, you would say. Maybe there's like some signs up saying "Don't park this way," but yeah, same thing. Maybe you could have taken cover or hidden there. So yeah, it's not difficult to head through the trees and start to check that out.
Taylor has some chips or something.
Yeah, I was about to list.
The invisible chip crunch. Like, what is that coming
like
from?
me with my apple.
And Taylor had called out northeast clear, but yeah, that's probably not immediately in front of you. And Blue Suit, is there anywhere you wanted to go from here?
Essentially, it would just be scanning the other way, even though Taylor kind of already did it, I guess. I mean, telepathically, we're all speaking, right? I mean...
Yes. Well, I mean, you can probably say on your turn what you're relaying to the other team about what you've seen and what you're...
Sure. I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to assume. So I guess just drop back down inside the police. Not that I'm assuming this guy's going to do that, but just drop in there and assess all the cars inside the cul-de-sac there.
All right. You just give me an agility check for your landing. It's a little bit of a jump. You probably want to like jump down, fire off your jets to land softly, so you're not breaking any ankles or anything, or sort of smashing a police car.
15.
Okay, the same thing. Yeah, not bad. You land okay, but you still that left thruster is giving you a little bit of worry. You're not sure if you'll be able to sleep tonight before you tighten that down. But you land okay, and the chief is immediately like, "Whoa, what the?" And then, oh, that's right, superheroes. All right, this readjust your settings for what's going on. I mean, the giant eagle taking off, he didn't get to witness, but if he sees that, that'll probably throw him for a loop as well. And Taylor for a metamorph. You're maybe like flying around here. You don't see anything down that way, and you did notice Blitzman and Shooting Star running around this corner, and you saw Shooting Star running north into the woods. You don't know if he's spotted anything or if he's just checking something else. You can go wherever you
want. What about this area over here, all the way to the west? A little bit curious over there.
This area here?
Can you do like a big marker on it?
Let me do something thicker. Oops, that's not too thick.
Oh, all right. Yeah,
like this area?
A little bit south of that. Yeah. That building, exactly. I want to look over there now.
Okay. All right, so you swing around and start heading this way. You are able to see it from your height, from where you are. Maybe not stuff on the other sides of the buildings, but go ahead and make a perception check.
Still with that advantage?
Yeah, I'd say given your height, you kind of have the perfect, perspective. Okay. And Eddie, I know you said you were just kind of hanging out in front, having a cigarette or doing whatever you're doing. If you want to step in and
that's
do
precisely
anything,
that's precisely what I was doing.
Feel free. if you want to say I'm gonna light a second cigarette or whatever that is,
Actually, I rolled and failed on my energy check to even light my cigarette. So right now I'm just standing outside trying to light my finger on fire so I can actually smoke.
That's a 29, Kurt.
29. So you definitely can see in this area. I mean, again, it seems to be like some local businesses and shops and whatnot. You do see a pharmacy, an apothecary, apotheca, but you don't notice any vehicles in the area. There's just no cars parked around it. Um, as everyone's pretty much in bed. There's really no one, and it's not like a 24-hour pharmacy. So this area, you could pretty much say is clear.
Okay.
Let's see. Blue suit jumped down. I guess the chief is would be talking to blue suit and coordinating again about what's going on with the different buildings. And then a shooting star. You just like sweep this area, like looking for behind trees or anywhere like a van could be stashed or a person could be running.
Yes.
I just I mean, you're pretty much able to like sweep through the area at speed, and just give me a perception check.
Helps if I hit the tower right. All right, that's only an 11.
Okay. Yeah, you don't notice anything standing out, although, I mean, as a construction area, it's a little busy. There is a lot of polished debris and stuff, but it's also pretty fenced off. You know, they usually put fences up because they don't want people walking through, taking shortcuts and hurting themselves. So, you know, someone would have to have some gates open to get something like a truck through here. Although it's still a possibility. And then Blitzman, you said you were heading down this street. You're kind of getting down around to here, looking for the van. Anything else you're looking for, or particular spots you're wanting to check out? I can kind of go back to here for a little more detail. Yeah,
So I'm
it's kind of what
gonna.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, they don't have a person drop here.
So yeah, I'm gonna look in that parking lot a little bit. I'm gonna say that I went west on whatever the name of that.
Yeah, the names would be still German names rather than changed to Polish names, and Polish and Czech have a definite lack of vowels. It's very consonant heavy, so they're always difficult to pronounce. And just give me a perception check for checking out that parking lot.
17.
Okay, you spot the van, and it is parked right here. Well, actually, I'll do it in Blitzman yellow since he spotted it. There are several other vehicles here, large trucks. These seem to be delivery trucks of some kind, and this structure here seems to have some of the same labeling as this office building. So you're thinking this must be some kind of office. This is like their warehouse, and then these are like their delivery vehicles. And tucked in a void between several of the delivery vehicles, which are on the large size, is the van. It's a lot bigger than them. You can still spot it from the street, but it is harder to spot because it is that same sort of general boxy shape. So that's it. Essentially, on your turn, you spot the van and you can tell what you do or what you say.
Okay. Is there anyone in the van?
You it'll essentially just go off even your existing perception check. The van was parked there. It's not running. The lights are not on. And looking through at least the driver's side window and then that side door, you don't see anyone in the van. But someone could still be inside if there's enough room to hide, or they could be behind it, or something like that.
And
Just not they're not in the driver's seat.
It's late at night, right? It's dark out.
Yes, it is, but there are street lights, and there's enough like lights around this parking lot. They want plenty of lights so hoodlums and stuff aren't going to be damaging or trying to take a joyride. So it is well lit up enough, but it is still late at night.
Okay, so I'm going to alert the rest of the group telepathically and let them know that I've spotted the van and the location, and and then I'm gonna go up and like crouch beside that first van, the one closest to me,
Okay.
and like look around very carefully
Okay.
and listen also.
Give me a perception check with advantage 2, because you're essentially like taking a couple of rounds to listen and check.
14.
Okay, not bad, but not wonderful.
Yeah.
So you have been running a little bit. You're kind of like calming your breath down. You're also you still got a bit of a wince from the pain. So you're kind of breathing through that and getting your breathing kind of slow and quiet enough, and just taking in the sound around you. As the other team members start arriving, you hear like the clops of feet down the street. You hear this whoosh of this giant eagle swooping down as the metamorph comes flying in. And I mean that sound from coming from like that southwest, you can almost feel this lack of sound from this whole area. Like no breathing, there's no bump or a metal tank on the van. There's no footsteps or running. You can't see or hear anything coming from this general area. The rest of you all. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, without consciously thinking about it, my character is tapping out a song on the side of the van.
Okay. Yeah. Take a legend point, and I'll say you're actually kind of giving your place away because you're making a little bit of noise because you're doing your fault, which is that. What was the actual name of the flaw?
It's compulsion.
Yeah, compulsion. You're always like just tapping kind of nervously on things, and in this one, it's literally on the side of a van, and it's actually like making a little bit of a rattle. So if
Yeah.
someone were hiding in the other van, like you could probably hear it, even in advance of everyone else's footsteps.
Usually he's whistling to himself or like tapping his fingers on his hand so it doesn't make noise, but like he just starts tapping on the side of the van.
Yeah, you are still, you're not quite loopy from the drugs, but you do have some painkillers in you, so you're feeling a little happy, if a little bit still in pain,
Yeah.
from the raw stitches, and the running probably didn't help it any. You probably have to check them when you actually do get some sleep tonight. You all show up on scene. You sort of tactically approach the van and clear it, and there is no one in the area. The door is, or the back door at least, is still open. The passenger and driver's side door are closed, and there's no one in or around the van. The chief shows up as well and sees you've secured the scene and the site, and you all commence to start searching it.
As soon as I
searching.
see that the chief has come to the site, I say, "Who's watching the prisoners?"
The jail is actually a different section of the police department. They actually have like their own little corrections group that operates independently of the other officers. So he says, yeah, I mean, the entire department, the entire building is now down him and Buller, but they still have the rest of the guys watching the prison, and they have an
Okay.
alarm they can sound. So he actually says, no, that's a good point in case it was a diversion to try to bail them out. But he says, I do feel pretty secure in how secure the building is, and that they would be able to set off an alarm of some kind. Actually, now that you say that, he says, actually, I'm going to leave checking out the van to you all, and I'm going to head back with Voller and stay there, given what you were saying about in case this being a diversion and a jailbreak. So he starts hoofing it back there. You could search the area if you want, but there's really just no sound, and you're not able to see any movement. So I mean, maybe even from the van just being parked there, you're guessing from the time he probably drove around the corner, if he did anything around here, eventually just pulled in and then probably took off in some direction. And now that you don't have the van to look for, you don't really have a lead to follow other than searching for clues. Is there anything?
Is there
Yeah.
any way that the metamorph can turn into something that can do a little bit of scent tracking potentially? Or is that not something that his abilities can do?
We don't have I don't think we pre-rolled one, but he can pretty much turn into anything. So yeah, he could turn into like, literally like a bloodhound.
Bloodhound.
I mean, why not give it a shot?
You would need some kind of scent to go off of.
Well, he was sitting in the driver's seat of this truck, right?
Okay,
Yeah, so
he
anything in
was.
there?
So if you want to try to smell the chair or like the steering wheel, essentially the driver's side area to try to get a scent.
Sniff his seat.
Gross. Fucking gross.
I'm looking for his ass.
Taylor, check me if I'm wrong, but generally the things you turn into, whatever their best stat is like your best stat, right? So if your highest ability is like 6 and it's a gorilla, so it's all about might, it has a might of 6. Doesn't it work like that?
You're looking for detection. Just so you know, the detection boon.
I'm just guessing if you turn into a bloodhound, wouldn't that mean like your perception is 6 or something like that?
Perception, yes, but again, what the boon you're looking for is detection. So maybe a bloodhound has that based upon a stat. So whatever stat for detection is high is what he would have, so to speak.
Actually, as far as boons, there might even be one for track. I don't remember.
Yeah, I wonder what that one's under.
That could also be a feat, though.
I'm totally throwing out detection only because I have read enough about it that I think that's what it's limited, but it is what it is. Like it's the ability to like smell bloods, smell.
Yeah. The only thing is the only attribute it works for is prescience.
Okay.
And I think you have it because you did the tech with your goggles.
Right. Yeah.
But for someone else, they'd have to use prescience for it.
That's annoying. You'd think it'd be something else.
So actually, when Jamie was playing his character, Schottenjäger, a shadow hunter, he actually had, I think one of his perks was his heightened smell. But he
Right.
also had that feat about like fast tracker. So I guess we'll just use perception in that case. So Taylor, just make essentially if you like turn into a bloodhound, give me a perception check for the van to try to lock onto some kind of scent.
Okay. Ooh, D20 is doing good tonight. 7 plus 8, 25.
And it is, he turns into a does someone else open the door and like help him up onto the seat or something? Or I was trying to go over how you're literally going.
Unfortunately, I'm nowhere near there, so I can't do anything.
Yeah, I opened the door.
Well, I basically said that some time had gone by, and all of you, including Oliver Ramos, if he's done smoking a cigarette, at least had shown up and is standing around. So, all right, so you open the door, Taylor. You climb in and try to take a big sniff of the area. And what was your role?
I think I heard him say 25.
Yeah, I thought 25. 25. Yeah, I thought it was something on the high side. So you do get a good scent. In fact, Blitzman even gets a scent. In fact, Metamorph, you take 2 points of damage as your nose burns from all the bleach smell. So you kind of opened the door, ran in, and took a big bloodhound sniff with your nose, and get essentially the wet bleach still on the seat and the passenger compartment, smelling of, and you all hear him, sort of this dog howling and whelping, this, before his actual voice kicks in, going, the smell of it. This is why, like in chemistry, you always waft something off. You never stick your nose right up to the vessel to take a smell of it. When I was in Czechoslovakia, I bought this antique trumpet from an antique shop, and I bought this like polishing stuff, and it's a bottle full of liquid with powder suspended in it. So you'd shake it up, pour it off onto the rag, and then rub it. And I was curious if it was just alcohol or what it was, so I opened the thing, I took a sniff, and it knocked me on my back. Like I don't know what the hell it was, but like it literally like burned the inside of my nostrils from it, and there was no feeling like it. I mean, if you stick your finger up your nose, you feel how like sensitive it is. It felt like sandpaper and like hot water shooting back there. It hurt so much. So you're kind of reeling. You almost instinctively turn back to your normal form just so the sense of smell dies out a bit. But once you get the door open, you can see inside. It is just all like sprayed down and still wet with bleach. Um, and then you can just smell wafting out of the compartment.
Ugh.
Is there anything else anyone wants to do or check? Places you want? I'm essentially going by story first to see if there's any ideas or places you want to look, and then we can just do a flat search roll after that to see if anything else shakes out.
I want to look around to see if there are any trash bins in the near area.
Okay. So Laura's going to search the area, especially around that parking lot, for trash bins. I mean, the warehouse might have one bin. Anyone else have things you want to check in or around the van?
I mean,
or the area?
I'd be stupid not to run my detection on the van again for anything specific to that dude. As you know, it's limited in what we do, but rolling it is not.
Run for prints.
Yeah. So go ahead and roll detection.
So
And then-
you know how like the little sun visor, you'll kind of flip it down. He probably put his finger on the inside of there and flipped it down. He didn't get that when he was bleaching this thing. He forgot. So
Okay. So
Let me
Taylor's going to check the behind the visor. Essentially, also looking for places. He may have put prints and not realized. Actually, up is a good idea. Shooting Star, Oliver Ramos, anything you want to do?
Is it nighttime or daytime? I missed.
It's still nighttime. It's still pretty late. It's actually getting more towards like 1 a.m. now.
Okay.
15 on the detection.
Okay. And Lars, just give me a perception check for your dumpster search. And Taylor is pretty much a straight search, and then Shooting Star, anything you're looking for?
I had a 17 for dumpster diving.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to the building to the northeast and just kind of zip around and try to see if I can see any way that somebody might have entered that building, because obviously this is going to be a locked up building at this point. So just to see if he's hiding in there or has gone past there in some way. So that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, and just give me a perception check.
I got a 21.
Okay. You make a quick lap of the building. There are no other vehicles parked around back. The whole parking lot is empty. All the lights are out. None of the windows seem to be broken. There's no doors forced. And the one main door and then the one like kind of side door, you check and they're both locked in place. So the building does seem to be tidied up. Blitzman, you do find one, like a larger dumpster bin in that area. There's really no other small pedestrian trash cans. And you check it, and it is just bare empty. Like it must have been emptied just that evening. They probably did this is the rounds for this particular street to have their garbage picked up. There's maybe a couple of scraps of kind of some stinky garbage, but just nothing in there. As well as the roll was decent enough. It wasn't like stuffed nothing under it or behind it or anything in the area.
Is there any smell of bleach?
Good call. No no smell of bleach in this area.
Okay.
Taylor, you check the behind that visor. There's nothing up there. You use your kit to see if you can get any prints, and you don't get any prints off of the top either. He wiped it down, or he didn't touch that particular part. Sorry. Go ahead, Taylor.
What about like under like the door handle when you open the door? Is there anything under there? That's my only other thought.
You try dusting the outside of the door for prints, and you don't find any there as well. The blue suit, using your detection, you're actually able to pick up like some of the chlorine fumes from this bleach, and it does seem to be just splashed about the inside of the passenger area, as well as down on the ground. You do see the ground immediately outside is a little wet, but with your goggles, you do see a couple of drops and dots, essentially this path that the bleach would have been taking. If the metamorph's nose hadn't been so burned out and you were able to follow the bleach, you can kind of follow this path of bleach. And it leads from the door out to the road here where it abruptly stops.
Yes, so he got in a car. Okay.
Your best guess is he's probably picked up in a car or took another car.
Right.
And took off from here, or this is just the only path that he would have walked. Is there, let's see, trash, circling the building, the door handle, yeah, nothing there. Is there anything else, any particular spot or place in the van, over the police van that you want to check out?
Well, hearing that from the blue suit, I think we would all reassemble, maybe back at the barracks or police precinct.
Okay.
Because it doesn't make any sense to search any further, considering it appears he was picked up.
Just give me like a perception check for everybody for the whole van. You can do it at advantage 1 because it's not during combat. You're taking your time.
19.
19.
$23.
Now the strong rolls coming out.
12.
Metamorph still reeling from the damn chlorine. Smelling that all night tonight.
25.
25. And Oliver Ramos, or are you still smoking?
I mean, I was gonna. It looks like he's gone, but my plan was like to check the warehouse because I was like, didn't the Days have a warehouse that we were supposed to go?
It was a safe house.
Oh, okay.
There was one safe house that what you got from interrogating one of them that his particular cell had used.
Yeah.
And Shooting Star did check out the office building.
Yeah, that was my plan.
This guy here, but if you want to check out this warehouse, you can. Just give me a perception check on that one.
Yeah, 6. 6.
Okay, you make a circle of the building and don't seem to spot any windows broken or things out of place. There's only one door and then like a main, sort of sliding door you'd actually load gear through, and both of them are locked. You can't find any other way inside, but yeah, you don't notice anything else out of place there, as well as prints or any kind of evidence. But from your perception checks and just the general search of the van, besides the specific ideas, you do find a matchbook down between the seats, essentially like right next to the driver's side seat on the floor. And in fact, like the top of the matchbook is still wet with some of the bleach, but the book is closed. And matchbooks, the paper is usually waxed a little bit because it's meant to be carried and potentially get a little bit wet in people's pockets and whatnot. The matchbook appears to come from, well, I'll pull it up. Well, I'll wait for yeah.
Maybe you can get a print off of the matchbook too. On the inside.
So as I was saying, you found a matchbook on down below the seat of the driver's seat on the floor. It is like a black, just the painted color black. It is covered in bleach, liquid bleach, but the paper on the outside is usually waxed, so it's sustained itself. The front cover of the matchbook is for a kneipe, like a bar called the Dicke Wirten. And on the inside of the matchbook, written in pen, is Halte sie ab oder du bist einfach fertig. So the translation for both, the name of the bar is The Fat Landlady, and written in it is Stop them or you are done. Obviously in German, and it's written in what appears to be like a blue fountain pen of some kind. Fountain pens are a lot more common in Germany. People use them more than where we would just use pencils. And people are also in Germany very particular about their fountain pen. You would never ask to borrow someone's pen to write something. It's a very personal kind of item. So there may be there's always, whenever you see a fountain pen, there's always something you get off of it, like that particular nib or that type of ink. Sometimes it's unique enough that you can run, but it appears to be dropped by this particular suspect. You do check the outside for prints. If there were any, the bleach must have gotten dissolved or just in the liquid. If not, the bleach is a kind of cleansing or dissolving agent. So you don't have any prints off of it, but it is at least some kind of clue from the van. As you said, you do all regroup back at the police station, the station house, and meet back with the chief. You relay what you found about the van, and he sends someone over to at least block out the scene. And the folks are finishing up at the train station, so some of them will have a very long night indeed, and have to go check out the van while on their way back. Back in speaking with the chief, again, Mr. Egon Tiedemann. He asks you about this Voller that you saw driving you there. Specifically, he asks about the color of his eyes, if you all remembered. Now, you can do, I would say, still do a perception check. This will be essentially your perception back at the time, as well as trying to recall the memories of speaking with him.
Not gonna be easy.
You make that roll, and I've got to make a roll as well.
I got a 19. I like to look at people's eyes because I'm probably gonna mimic them later. So
that's true. You would have a little bit more of an attention to detail.
21.
7, 4. So
damn it.
I got a 24.
good job with the freaking
My 6 exploded.
4 again.
You guys are crushing on these perception checks. That's close. 1.
12.
Oh, and now you're not Blitzman, of course. He was still at the hospital during that. Let's see. All right, so Shooting Star and Oliver Ramos was high enough. It's funny. It's one of these. You're like, what color of his eyes? I don't know, like brown or something. It didn't really stand out to you. But now that you have the memory in your head and you're looking back on it, it's almost like a little slippery. Like you're almost having trouble picturing his face for a second. And then you finally lock onto the memory and you realize, yeah, his eyes were two different colors.
Were
One
they the
was blue
same
and one
colors
was brown.
as the girl?
Yeah, the same as the girl. And it feels really weird, like you were rohypnoled by yourself. Like you remember seeing it and you remember going, oh, that's nothing. Almost like a voice in your head saying, like, some people in their eyes, whatever, and then immediately going on to the conversation. Like it's almost like fuzzy, like your memories are altered or changed, or you didn't see it or you didn't notice, or something stopped you from noticing it. If you've watched any of the new, it's been in several of the new episodes of Doctor Who. It's like a perception filter. So it's something, if you stare right at it and you're looking for it, you'll see it. But if you're not looking for it, you don't even notice it. So like if in one of the stories, like the girl grew up in this house and there was a creature living in one of her spare rooms, and it just put a perception filter on the door. Well, it was just some sewing room that no one ever used. So everyone just walked right past it like it was never there. And finally, in the end, he's like, how many rooms are on this floor? And it's like, there's two. No, there are three. Like, look. And she had to look, and it wasn't until then it like clicked, like, oh my God, there's another door there. It's almost like this kind of a change. So you kind of have this realization, and the chief kind of sees this in your eyes and asks, is there anyone else that you've seen with heterochromia, with these two different colored eyes? And you can say whatever you're going to say about your background. So
So
if
not
you,
like Star Trek with how many lights there are.
yeah, there are four lights.
There are four lights.
So
Yes.
you do describe this young girl who you saw with the heterochromia, who is on the train, and the details of how she had gotten there and then slipped away at the end. And as I pull up my notes again,
I'll actually shapeshift myself into the girl and like mimic the girl so that I have like an exact photo or whatever to go off
That's
of.
you can pretty much take 10, but let's just do a. Well, actually, you don't even have to roll because you have boon focus, right?
Yep.
That's actually awesome. So like the mimic actually even gets incorporated into your boon focus. You don't have to roll for that. So you turn into it, and the chief is kind of taken back for a second. He reaches back and puts his hand on his gun for a second. He almost like he's asking for clarification.
And I'm just like dun dun dun.
He looks confused. He's not. He doesn't appear to be aware of your abilities. If you want to explain or say anything, but he seems freaked out, like he thinks you are the actual infiltrator here.
Well, you know they call me the Metamorph, so.
So I guess you are all with him, so he asks you all to confirm that this is the case. And everyone stays quiet as he.
I'm like, I don't know who that guy is.
So you all slowly but reluctantly vouch for your teammate and say,
Yeah.
well, yeah, he's all right. That he does turn into these things. So he, puts his gun back, kind of slumps down in his chair, sighs, and he pulls out a dossier which he flips out on the table. And he says her name is Claudia von Falkenhayn. She's an infiltrator, a burglar, a spy for hire, and goes by the name Doppelganger. And this is what we believe her true form is. Essentially, what she would normally look like. We know she was born in 1888, so she's currently 46. The young girl who you just turned into, from old photographs, we believe that's actually what she looked like when she was 11. So the girl you saw essentially was, this woman as she actually appeared when she was 11. If you show him the photo of the little boy, Helga, he said that that boy was actually her childhood friend as when she was that age. And this young boy was Kit was what's the word? Abducted. He was abducted when he was that age, and no one ever saw him again. Um, and this woman is just an expert infiltrator. The way she can do what the metamorph does, turn into other actual people or just different people. Even that aside, she's just a master bullshit artist. It's so hard to catch her in any kind of a lie. The story always sounds convincing, and there's a saying like the best lies always contain a nugget of truth. So she came up to you saying, "Hey, my little brother's missing." Well, this was really her best friend as a kid, and he was missing as a little kid. So if you're trying to just do a straight truth read, in a way, it is true he was abducted. It's just she twists it into her stories, and it's always almost nearly impossible to try to catch her in that moment. Um, and her ability to turn into these different people is almost perfect, except for her heterochromia. So she really does have these two differently colored eyes, and there's some defect in a way in her ability where she's able to turn into all these different people, but she always has these two different colored eyes. She does seem to have some sort of ability, like a mind washing thing, to make people not notice it if they're not looking. So it's been rare, but there are cases where they've had trained their people to specifically check for this, but it's so hard to just constantly be like on the ball, like what color are your eyes, what color are your eyes, what color are your eyes. It's You can't focus like that for that amount of time. So if it was like if he asked you to guard the front door and said check everyone for those eyes, and you could check everyone that came in, but just walking down the street or ordering breakfast, it would be hard to notice. It just slips by unless you're really looking for it.
She's like Taylor with the fez,
It is like Taylor with the fez. It is somewhat of a weakness in her abilities. There have not been any reports of her actually turning into other things like animals, like Taylor seems to be, or Metamorph seems to be doing. It seems to only ever be people that anyone's ever seen, but she does seem to have that down to a T, like in being able to actually impersonate someone. So the way Bowler looked just was perfect, except for the fact that he happened to be injured recently, just the other day. This was a relatively new development. Given this, and given she's operating around here and she was on the train, when he pulls back everyone who's done with the investigation at the train yard, even the people who are not actually still going to have to go do paperwork and check out the van, he keeps them all on duty in the station, including people from some of the other departments, just in case they try to infiltrate and make the rescue or something of the people operating out of this place. Let's see. Oh, well, she can't hide it from photographs too. So if there is a photograph taken of her, it's going to show the difference in eyes no matter what form she's in. There's no way to fool a camera. It's only human beings and their minds observing her at the time. So he says you can at this point essentially relay everything you were going to tell about your story and the points you're trying to convey about that they may make an attempt to try to rescue these guys. And he does put in a call to back up at the state level to try to get them to essentially move these guys right from the jail to the prison, even though they haven't actually been gone through the Empire's version of due process. There's just the worry that they would be uh, taken out of the local jail. If you've watched Public Enemies, the Michael Mann film about John Dillinger, like when he was finally arrested, they had him at a local jail, but they had literally the local National Guard guarding the jail with sandbags, and the prosecutors actually wanted to move him to the local prison because they were worried he would be able to escape from some small jail. So, given your recommendations, the chief is going to try to get him transferred to the local prison at least. For now, there's nothing else he needs from you all, so you can pretty much They did get you a local hospital, a local hotel for you all to stay at for the night, which is just down the street, pretty much next to where the McDonald's is. Um, if you want to, somebody says to go there, just crash for the night. He'll pick you all back up at 10, and we'll pick up in the morning. Originally, from my notes, he was going to pick you up, take you to the hospital to visit Blitzman, but he's here now, so you'll essentially pick back up in the morning. Is there anything else tonight you wanted to talk about or convey or investigate or check out? You're all pretty fried for how tired you are. You Blitzman, especially, you're in pain, and at the same time, you just want to sleep. You can barely keep yourself upright. But is there anything else you wanted to check out before you crash out for the night?
I'm good.
Okay. So they.
I kind of want to do one thing.
Sure.
I just want to let everyone know, just because there's another shapeshifter out there, that my middle name is Flabluche. Okay, just so if you see me, just ask me for my middle name, because I might not be me now. Don't trust anyone. And I asked everyone what their middle name is, and now I'm gonna start asking everyone what their middle name is when I see them.
I think we should come up with a challenge and response that we use, and we should do so through the telepathy, not verbally.
Ooh.
So,
I like that.
and I will even go so far as, no, you can't have a middle name, but red. Red.
Okay, so you can exchange, if not a middle name, some kind of code word as a personal identifier. But you could also come up with just a generic challenge and response, which you can change at any time you want if you want to do it per day or per week. That would be, like in World War II when they were storming the beaches and stuff, like flash thunder would be the response. So you call out a word, and if they are not spot on with that response, you're going to be essentially treating them as an enemy if you want to come up with that.
That's what
You want to make one up as your initial one?
That you took it right out of my head. Yeah.
Maybe we should have something that isn't obvious that goes with it, like flash spaghetti.
But not even that. Like, my thought process would be to go farther. I would say to everyone, like, you just state red, and I make a gesture. Like not even a spoken response, because you never know, but just like there's a specific response to the word you say that is movement, because you can tell if someone's being incapacitated, but actually speaking, you never know.
Yeah, so Blue Suit essentially is proposing even a subtle form. So if you're all sitting down at dinner and one of you gets back from the bathroom and there's another person, like a sixth person with you, and you're like, flash, thunder, the sixth person would be like, what the hell is this flash, thunder stuff? Whereas, Blue Suit would say, okay, you say red, and he would just do some kind of hand motion. Someone else might not put that together. Like, have you seen someone, this dude wearing red shoes? Is something to mention it like that. So do you want to come up with one that'll be your challenge? And you are coming up with this. You are in a secure place. The police station's pretty emptied out. You can see the police chief doesn't have two colored eyes. You can include him in this or not if you want. But if one of you wants to make one up,
I would say it's flat out like we'll do our own personal thing amongst the group, and then if the chief, like, then we can go to the chief and say, hey, maybe there's a sequence we should do with you, but like all of us personally, I think should have our own thing. Like for each person.
You don't even have to say what it is. Just for now, we'll say you're going to set up a personal challenge and response, which is going to work for each of you individually, and then you're going to have another challenge response that you'll set up as a group, which you'll essentially synchronize with the chief, since you'll be essentially operating under him while you're in Breslau, and he's the one that's going to be supplying your equipment and all that kind of stuff too.
It really should be like something you can use in a sentence, and then the other person just does, like scratches his ear or whatever. So it all looks nonchalant if you're not, looking for it.
I guess it'll definitely work in a one-on-one situation. It's more difficult when you're in a group because if one of you shows up and there's five of you there and you say flash and then four of you say thunder and then the fifth person's like, oh yeah, thunder. Like
no. I think the biggest thing is and Kurt even said it, like out of game, we all have a thing, and he's gonna roll based upon some perception of someone else if they wanted to impersonate, and we would be able to roll based upon our perception or whatever. So it's like it's cool that we have a thing that we're kind of going for, but what Kurt's saying is that we've established this, and maybe at some point it will come up.
Yeah, so your personal ones you probably know enough, but I think Taylor's idea of like sharing the middle name, as much as you have been operating as a team for a while now, and you know personal stuff about each other, you can share a little bit more, so you have something a little more solid to go on. So we'll just say in game terms, you have a personal challenge response and a public or a group operating your team one. And you can choose to call that out. It's just you'll have to be mindful of the situation, whether it'll work or not. You could say like, "Hey, GM, I'm thinking of using the challenge response with so and so in this situation." And if there's a problem, they're like, "Well, it's not going to work because the signal might be to touch your ear, so all five of you are going to be touching your ear at the same time." We can play that out, but we'll just say you've set both of these ones up, which you may want to use tomorrow morning first thing when you get back together. Paranoia. Um, so if there's nothing else there, you're essentially escorted, police escort to the hotel. You check out your rooms. You've pretty much secured the situation. You check the people working there; their eyes are okay. You do feel you can finally kind of lock the door, bolt it, and get a decent night's sleep. Blue suit, you might stay up a little bit and tweak that one booster was a little bit off, and uh, Lightning Man, you might take another dose of your painkiller and just try it, but you're so tired you just zonk out. So you're all able to get a decent night's sleep, and you're back and refreshed in the morning. The chief picks you up. You can try your challenge responses out in the morning as a test, and also just to make sure it's the actual chief picking you up. And you do seem to be all set. And you're back at the station, and he's ordered in food, so you pretty much have breakfast and pastries and coffee and whatever you'd want. And they actually got just a ton of it because they've got three different villages worth of police officers coming out of here. A lot of them have been writing reports all night. So it is just like the awesome buffet of German breakfast goodness and pastries and coffee. So similar to your base back home, you all get one temporary legend point. It's good for essentially this session and the next one. As soon as you get in the afternoon, it's kind of faded off by then, but you essentially got an extra one to use in the immediate future. Let's see. So it is Friday, July 13th, still 1934. He picks you up. Lightning Man's doing okay. It's still a little bit under for some. So you got some of your lethal damage back, but you still got
Whoa! Friday the 13th.
Yeah, actually, it is.
All right, so I'm gonna be really superstitious today.
and I there's a couple of websites that actually you can look up calendars for, not even just in the past, but actually other countries. You can put in case they have local variations. So all of the dates, the in-game dates I've been using, like whatever the day of the week is, that literally was the day of the week back then. So it actually was, and I didn't even think of that, or maybe I did. And something special is going to happen, or not, or is, or not. So it is literally Friday, the July 13th, 1934.
Spooky.
Per Austria. Let's see. Tiedemann reviews what he knows about the Iron Maiden and Burg Eltz, the castle. And as I said again, In German, Burg and Schloss are both names for a castle. Like Schloss Neuschwanstein is one everyone's mostly going to know. The difference where we just say castle, Burg means more like castle, like fortress, like a military uh, hard point, whereas a Schloss means more castle, as in a palace, more looks than actual function. So this is, I mean, granted, 1200 AD or so, the 13th century. The whole area, like Gothic, that old classic like Gothic architecture. This is the period that's from. This is that type of structure. Um, he said he's been chief for a while. He was in his mid 30s. The last heist the Iron Maiden had pulled off, that was in 1925 when she hit that train load full of uranium coming out of the east, essentially what was the Russian Empire, in exchange. Um, by that point, he had wanted to take the castle by force after that heist. The radiation of the material that had been stolen had really freaked them out. But it was the mayor of the town had stopped the police force. He was worried about retaliation. And as Tiedemann says, in hindsight, the mayor at the time was probably right. As much as the castle is nearby, or this is the closest city, the Iron Maiden has never set foot in this town or done anything in this local city. It's always been far flung areas. So the town has kind of had a laissez faire relation with this castle. As long as they don't get outright attacked, they're not going to be the ones riding in. It really should be the military or a state level that would be conducting an operation like that. So they have never had any direct trouble from her. And because of that, so he has his orders from the very top of the empire to cooperate with you and your team and to give you whatever resources you need. But he's also under direct orders from the local government not to send any of their people on site or anywhere near the castle. So you will have all the supplies and support you need, but no backup. I mean, there are no radios, but there is going to be no calling in the troops and having the local police force or even military show up. They all still want to leave this place alone. You can hit it and run, do whatever you need to do. If it comes up and you need to blow the whole place up, you can do whatever you want, and they will give you whatever equipment and information you need, but no one else other than your team is going anywhere near the castle. As I explained before, too, the castle perimeter, the whole area, this whole valley it's in, they have fences and signs up basically saying no trespassing, more to protect the people who would be potential trespassers, because anyone who's scouted this place out or gone near the castle has disappeared, and they don't want some hunter wandering on and getting killed by a giant death robot or something. Equipment. Some of you had written in with equipment suggestions. I generalized in some of them. So camouflaged clothing and or ghillie suits of some kind, backpacks and other hiking materials, rock climbing equipment. So harnesses, ropes, carabiners, eyelets, figure eights, pitons, hammers, anything you would need for any kind of even extensive climbing. Bolas, Lars has suggested for someone running essentially to throw to try to knock them down, or specific weapons, silent weapons to that type. Binoculars, telescopes, any kind of optics. Cameras for taking pictures of different areas to analyze later. And whatever else, I'll leave it open now if you want to brainstorm and come up with anything else you want to use for equipment. The overall plan is to go on site at a fair distance, scout out, observe, fall back, rest up, make a plan, and then go in with the assault. But even for this initial run, you may want camouflage cameras, binoculars, things like that. Is there anything else for equipment that you can think of, either for this scouting run or for the final run? Do you want to do tents and stuff and camp out nearby and then move in, or just go straight there, or any other kind of equipment you can think of?
Dynamite and detonators.
Okay, so some kind of explosives and detonators.
Yeah. Can we actually get that?
Yes.
Okay. I
This
actually think
probably would be more civilian level stuff. So the fuses or mundane timers you would use if you're demolishing a large building. You definitely have all of the punch, but maybe not the waterproofing and nice timers and exact to the second kind of thing. But you are authorized to get at least basic explosives. I can't remember the name of it, but it's I think it's like Compound B or something like that. It's like the what was plastic explosives back in like the 1930s at the time. It's a bit more stable than dynamite, but not as stable as C4, which you can practically hit with a hammer.
We're talking about reconnaissance first, right? We don't need dynamite.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
so
I'm
the
just saying,
dynamite
like out of nowhere, like we're going to dynamite.
yeah. No. I mean, this would be equipment for both or either.
Right.
I'm seeing Taylor flying with his, small bird-like thing, and just flying around this thing, maybe even flying by to see in the windows, land on the window ledge, look in, fly off.
Well,
I am very down.
I mean, Eddie can turn invisible, but the question remains by observing is, do they have something that's anti that, right? I mean, we're talking about storming a castle for someone who knows about meta or metas and superheroes and has the ability to plan for that, right? So, like, we're not just going to say to Eddie, teleport in invisible and yay, we get everything, right? Like, we're trying to observe that level, right? And maybe having Taylor be a normal animal would be great. I don't get me wrong, I think that'd be perfect. I just don't want to just like, hey Eddie, teleport in. We got the whole thing, because I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah. You do want to come up, and the next session, if we get to, most likely we'll get to it. Will literally be just, and as I said, all the photos of the castle. I have photos from pretty much all sides around, and I'll go over some of the basics here so you know where you're going to be going. You can look at them in advance. It's going to be like a spitballing session where you're like, well, what about that wall? Like, say we climbed up there. Do I see any guys on top of the wall? Or it looks like this grassy area is kind of open. Like, can we have Taylor fly by and see if there's any mines or something like that? So you are trying to literally climb into a castle which is designed to stop, at least 13th century people from climbing in, but it is also, or at least was originally operated by a supervillain who is very technically capable and has clockwork soldiers and things. So there's stuff you're going to want to search for. And I have some ideas, I have some things that'll happen or can happen, but this will be another chance for you to come up with ideas. Like, say one of you spots this one little corner where you could climb up between the two walls where no one can see. Like, maybe that'll be the story. So you'll kind of help writing the story as you look over the scene and try to pick out one of these places to go in. So if you have any other suggestions for equipment, you can email me at any time. If we're on the scene and you're like, oh crap, I didn't think of binoculars, I'm gonna give you a little bit of leeway. We're not commandos or police officers. We all work day jobs, so we're not gonna think of all this kind of stuff. So I'll give you a little bit of leeway, but not too much. You can't say like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had a pole with a hook on the end? Like, no, you didn't really ask for that. So think of whatever.
You mention it. Can we bring the pole with the hook on the end?
Okay, hold the hook on.
Smart. Good for smart.
I was thinking of what's the D&D the famous dungeon?
The 1E 10-foot pole.
Oh yeah, 10-foot pole.
The
10-foot
dumbest
pole
thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah,
Mike, what was the one you ran it? It was in
Till the Horse. Tomb
Oh,
of,
yeah,
Tomb of
Tomb of
Horrors
Horrors.
was
Like-
flat out like that was the meat grinder. Like Tomb of Horrors
Yeah.
was he made it just because his players were being assholes. And yeah, it was totally like 10-foot poles. I gotta tap everything along the way.
They had like a bundle of like 20 10-foot poles. They just
Right.
kept pulling them off, and they would get destroyed or sucked into a void.
Right.
They'd pull another one out. Just like
Yeah.
the 10-foot pole ridiculousness. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing to think about. When you go through, you look at that D&D inventory of all that. The chalk, the signal whistles, all this other kind of crazy stuff. This is the place to kind of brainstorm and think up different ideas you might have. I mean, in this case, it seems like you could establish this telepathy,
Right.
so that'll be a little bit easier to signal each other. That'll make my job
Easy, but at the same time, it costs Eddie a minor action
Well,
to
actually,
sustain.
true.
So,
Be invisible while he's keeping that up.
Can I level up? I can level up in between combat, right? Like just not in combat.
You can. So I mean, technically the rule is between sessions you can
Okay.
spend your points. I I don't want to make it. I don't want to give you too much, so I don't want to say like where you save your points, and I'm like, okay, for the next campaign, we're going to the Arctic, and you're like, I'm gonna put cold resistance.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a little bit of a schmooze, but I mean, if you have been doing this telepathy, you're doing all the teles. This telepathy seems like it does work pretty well. So your character you might get boon focus in that. So if you wanted to spend that in between sessions, I wouldn't fault you there. You have used it a couple of times now to pretty good success and got around my radio. I mean, I wrote that radio does not exist in this universe almost for this purpose. I did figure this kind of stuff would be coming. But you did put a pin in that little.
But it's important because it causes a detriment. It's not like I can just create radios for everyone. You were like, no, Mike, you can't do that. Like, it actually causes a negative effect on Eddie. He actually has to say, I'm doing X, Y, Z and maintaining X, Y. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a drawback to it. I think that's important.
Yeah. If I do the telepath thing, I can't teleport, and I can teleport. I can't stay invisible.
Yeah, it's because it's sustained.
So I can't.
And there is a cost in that you all have to listen to that creepy Latin chanting and whispering in the background. And if you keep one of these telepathy sessions up for several hours, you might have nightmares that night. Sleep. You might lose a little bit of sleep in the process.
So Kurt, for the assault portion, I assume we're gonna like scout it out and then do the assault all in one go, right? We're not gonna go scout it out and leave and come back, right?
Yeah, you are going to scout it out, leave, and come back.
Yes.
Because just looking at it, you've got to like if you're going to take pictures or just make notes, you're gonna have to come up with some kind of plan to actually study. So
this is the
just
greatest
going
game.
and looking at it, it's going to be kind of hard, like on the spot. So yeah,
Right.
you're going to stock up on just the light stuff. You're going to keep much more of a distance, just enough to get eyes on it, but definitely be in cover and be far enough away from it, and then come back, like maybe study some photographs, argue notes back and forth, and plan. I mean, we're literally gonna sit here and look at pictures and plan it out, and then we're just gonna say you're gonna leave and come back. But in all that travel, things can transpire as well.
Gotcha. So for that time period, I didn't see what the explosive you were talking about, but they talk about dynamite a lot. So I think it would make sense probably for us to have like dynamite, like what they would use for like in a blasting in a mine or something like that. So, you know what I mean? Like it's not like C4 where you like it's sticks of dynamite.
I back when you were at the warehouse, when you raided that one warehouse where they were rebuilding the planes and hiding the Langsam drug in behind the panels and stuff, and you found there was like the production facility where they were trying to redo the chemistry of the drug. You would notice that the whole place was actually wired for explosives, so that if they were raided, they could set it off, and you actually shut down all those charges. it's basically the same type of explosives they have there. So it's the proto C4, whatever the stuff was back in the day.
All right, so for when we go, I would separate the blast caps, and Tyler can carry those in his backpack, and I'll carry the C4 or whatever we're calling it, C3 or whatever, C3PO.
I'll look. I looked it up a bit prior to that one. I'll look it up again and see what the name of it was.
Okay, and I'm gonna. It's all gonna get wrapped in oilcloth to keep it dry.
Yeah, so I'll especially consider that you're taking the standard precautions that you would with it, to make sure you're not getting any accidental explosions and stuff. Used
I think we might have already talked about this, but what about like some like EMP stuff? I feel like there's gonna be some Android shit going on here, but I feel like that's also right up Blue Suit's area, and he has EMPs down.
I don't have that kind of incapacitate. It's on.
I think composition C, I think is the stuff that I was talking about. But I mean, basically, it's a little bit more stable. If you look up plastic explosives, they go through some of the history and mention some of the earlier stuff. I mean, the specifics aren't as important, but it's similarly packed to be carried in packs, and a little bit more safe from the weather and that than just like standard sticks of dynamite.
I got you.
And cool. Also fresh too. When you get older, dynamite it'll blanking on the terms now. It can get unstable as the paraffin to clay and stuff that keeps it stabilized will break down.
Okay.
So EMP, so they are robot-ish, and actually that is something you can check out here. So you can scout out the castle itself, but there is also, I mean, the fat landlady, the Dick of Newton, that bar is a bar in town where that match book came from. You could check that out. And having talked to the chief, you can also check out the museum. They have a sample of one of the older robots, or at least like an older iteration back from the early 20s. So you can get a somewhat of an idea of the way they're constructed. The power seems to be unclear how they operate, but it is not like circuit electronics. This would be more clockwork type function, and the power might not be purely mechanical. There could be a chemical, or I don't know, who knows, some sort of nuclear powered thing, but it's not like circuit boards and wires. And even so, and I actually looked it up, they really had no way of generating an EMP back in that day. I mean, the only way really was an actual nuclear blast. It was only well after research in the bombs were we actually able to create generate an EMP burst without the nuclear blast that came along with it. So,
I mean, argumentatively, I would say that Lars could, with electricity, do said thing. However, I'm not going to say that's what he can do. What I can say is that by researching these devices, we can find a weakness, so to speak. So it may not be EMP, but it may be something like where you find
would probably find something out. Whereas, say, if Lars wanted to use the energy attribute to do incapacitate,
correct,
that would work. Or maybe it would work really well. And if someone wanted to do if Eric was going to do like the chop to the back of the neck with his sap, you might find out like, oh, that's not going to work at all. But if you actually hit him at this one spot in the sternum, that's where the main screw drive is, and that will incapacitate.
Something in this gear here causes them to shut down. So if I glue that gear specifically, or you guys jam something in that gear specifically to incapacitate, the incapacitate bane works because of blah blah blah. It's kind of where I'm going with.
So that's something else. Yeah, Eric.
Just don't kick the robot between the legs. It's not going to work.
I'm just trying to give a good story reason why like research would work as opposed to something else. Yeah.
That was in Star Trek Six, which I think is one of the best of the original Star Trek movies. And Kirk and McCoy are tried and then put in the Klingon prison. This huge, like horned alien, he essentially starts picking on him and fighting him, knocks him down, and out of desperation, he just kicks the guy in his knees, and he just folds, like crying. And they're all like, "Well, I guess I was lucky." And one of the local aliens says, "Yeah, not all species keep their genitalia in the same place. So, yeah, robot genitalia might be in their knees or their ankles or wherever their sensitive spots might be." So besides scouting the castle, you can also go to this museum. You can also check out the bar, or you could check out other things in town if you wanted to do something else. You had another idea for. Let's see. So actually, that's all I had for at least the chief's briefing and the stuff at the department. You can ask any other questions. Oh, I guess just the general briefing of this place. I'll do it here. So this is the castle proper, and as far as the general area, this is like a little valley, like a teardrop shaped valley, and all of these trees around it, like this is like a mountain ridge that's much higher up, like almost over the top parts of the castle. If you tweak it into 3D, you can kind of see a little bit of that height. It's not perfect, but you can see this is like just a high round ridge with somewhat steep slopes all the way down into this valley. Uh, the river Elzbach. So this is the Burg Elz, and this is the Elzbach River. You can see a little bit more on the map here. The river really curls right into this valley. I mean, this is kind of what carved out this little valley. But all around it is at much higher elevation. The castle itself is also on a hill. So in the middle of this valley is also this teardrop shaped hill, and the castle is up on it. So you have this high valley wall, mountain walls down to the valley, up the hill, and then the castle on top of it. And this section of ground to the north is also up at this higher elevation. So this also drops down low, and this bridge essentially takes you from this middle elevation hot a ways up over the top of the valley into the castle itself. I'll give you, well, I can show you some of the pictures.
I'm bringing a telescope.
For when we finally go. So here it is from above. Here it is from the north. So here's that high, a ridge around dropping sharply down to the valley below, and then this hill which has been, somewhat naturally, somewhat artificially built up, and then the castle built on top of it. And here's that long gangway. Obviously here's the river, and it's a lot lower down here. That long gangway out to it, and then you pretty much have walls all the way around on either side, and then pretty much the main body of the structure in the middle, with a couple of smaller surrounding buildings towards the edges. The specifics we'll go into when we actually go to scout it out. Oops. It's just to give you an idea of what the area is going to look like. The town Breslau, which you're in, is all far to the northeast, and there's a main road that heads northeast to southeast out of town. Off of that breaks off a small road, and this is actually in a different location, but the way I'm doing it, the main road is essentially coming by here. And then there's this off turn which takes you down to this road, which then heads across the bridge. that downturn, and as far as these fences, they pretty much go all the way around this whole area. So your recommended approach is essentially to take this main street to not use this off road in case it's watched, and then hike down into the valley at the river basin, and then hike up the backside of this hill up to the top, and then scout it, and then work your way around this ridge, taking pictures and looking at the castle, all the way around, and then essentially exfiltrate out the opposite side of this ridge. So you're never on the inside from that ridge in case there's any sensors or anything around there. Back out to the main road and then back to town to regroup. When you do come to scout it out, that'll be essentially the plan of attack, and we'll just take it from hiking here down, up and around through the woods and whatever you run to along the way, and then the actual scouting. And then back at town where you are, you can also, as optional, do the museum, and then if you want to check out the matchbook lead in case there's anything. Not saying there's going to be something there. It's another option if you want to go that way, to check out. For
Oh, Kurt,
now, yeah, go ahead.
are wingsuits a thing at this point in time?
No, that's definitely a lot later. I stretched
no,
the technology a little bit. Like I think like the Luger or the Walther P38 and some of those hadn't actually come out until the late 30s, and we have them in this world just because some of the equipment is just cool and fun to use. Well, I think the Walther PBK was, or the PP, the original police pistol. That was technically 1935. It doesn't come out until next year, but you can get it in the game. So I do stretch some of those things. Yeah, wingsuit is that's a little too much. So that wouldn't be an option for these guys. But if you wanted to turn into one of your classic birds, or I don't know if Blue Suit wanted to do some kind of camera rig that you would carry as a bird, but I don't know if someone looking at a bird flying might see it carrying a box and get suspicious. But I want to give you the option to think of interesting stuff.
And I wonder at what level I could do an aura of shapeshifting so it could all be birds. I wonder what level. I think that's gonna be like level 8 or something.
Let's see.
Because aura, you got to do it at half of the level. Parabellum pistol, interesting.
Yeah, the Luger.
Yeah, I love the Luger.
What you commonly would refer to as a Luger was actually adopted by the Swiss Army in May of 1900.
Okay, yeah, the Luger has definitely been around. It's the Walther PP was the one, and then the P38 also. Well, 1938 for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandpa had the Luger, and he also had a musket. Some interesting guns.
I'll have to look up the thing with the aura. I think there was. It doesn't seem to say anything about the power level. If the aura radiates a boon, then the target of the aura is also affected by it. They automatically gain it upon leaving the area. That feature.
All right, so shapeshift you can get that at power level 5. So I think I would have to be at power level 10 to do that.
Does it say something about? I thought one of the abilities said you can do it, the other one at a lower power level, but I don't see that here. So it must be. It just says that the aura power level just affects the radius.
Oh, maybe barrier. That's more Bane, I think. Yeah.
You surround a willing target with an area aura. So it's sustain persists at power level 6. It'd be a 10-foot radius. That's not bad. Power level 4, 5-foot radius is pretty tight.
But then I can only shapeshift at a power level of 3, which is a So after like 15 feet around me, everyone can go double size or half size. You can only get
Yeah,
flight
it
at
says
level.
choose a single bane or boon which uses the same attribute that you use to invoke the aura. So you would invoke the aura at power level 6, which takes alteration. Then you'd use alteration to do the shapeshift. Oh, yeah. The maximum power level for the chosen bane or boon is 1/2 of the power level of your aura. So that is it there. So what do you need? Power level 5 to turn him into a bird?
Yeah, so it'd have to be at like 10.
Yeah, you'd have to be
so-
power level 10. So that's why that would limit it. Because you could use your minor action to sustain aura, and then use your free action to sustain shapeshift, but the power level wouldn't be enough.
Mhm.
You could do it at power level 3, which is half and double. Yeah, not any. Yeah, non-flight movement. So you could like all turn into dogs or wolves or something.
Yes,
I
we
would
could turn into
I would
that. Oh, I
refuse.
can make us all turn into apes in a 15-foot
I
radius
I
around
would
me.
adamantly
We
refuse.
could be a pack of wolves.
Well, and actually, you could turn into birds, but you would not get It's any non-flight movement mode. You would turn into monkeys, and you'd all have climbing abilities.
Oh, true, true. Yeah, we could be birds with flightless birds. Yeah.
The birds would not be able to fly, but the monkeys would be able to climb. Power level 3, you could do that.
I can walk like a penguin.
Yeah, guys, we could be penguins just walking through.
Let's see.
But it would be like a really clustered group.
That would be very inconspicuous.
We could all be bears, so just like 5 bears just walking through.
Let's see, half and double. I'd be a small bear. Bears are pretty on the large side. It would be double your size. So if you're 200 pounds, it'd be a 400 pounds. I think bears are a bit larger.
Maybe a deer would be a better option.
Yeah, deer would work, and that would be. Of course, you'd have to worry about any hunters in the area.
Well, didn't we say that hunters are going to be excluded from the area?
Well, true. If you're within the bounds, well, in theory,
Yeah.
there shouldn't be any hunters within the
Right.
bounds of the grounds. Yeah, so that'd be an idea too. But in any case, well, it's 9 now. I'll stop her here.
Yeah.
Mostly um, storytelling. What was I going to say? Exposition. Mostly exposition of what happened after the train. Your briefing here. Your planning for what's going to happen next, and then essentially the doppelganger showing up. The same person, it appears, that was the young girl that was hired by the Days, followed you also, and it seems that she or he is under orders to stop you. It was sort of said in those general terms, at least. Let me pull that up again. Photo.
I was just watching a doppelganger episode in X-Files, so I should have been on a high alert.
Yeah. Yeah, halt sie ab oder du bist einfach fertig. So, stop them or you're done. And it is in sort of generic terms. So you don't know if this was relative to the train, relative to the after the train, or maybe even relative to your current trip going to the castle. But she does seem to be, have an interest for you and what you're doing here. And you, at least from talking to the police chief, you do feel relatively confident about. You're not worried about a jailbreak. So if you're doing your classic D&D intelligence check, if you guys all go running off for a day or two to scout out the castle, you're not too worried about the police station getting hit. You've seen the place; it's pretty secure. They've got pretty much all hands on duty, and they're going to be transferring the prisoners to the local prison where they'll definitely be secure. So you're not too concerned about that. You can go about the rest of your investigation. You can come up with any ideas. Email me if you have any other questions or things you want to check out. Otherwise, we'll pick up next week and then continue it from there. And just a heads up too, I should still be good to play, but well, I mean Taylor and Eddie will know somewhat. Well, I think Eddie's been kind of manning the fort as we're all working on the upgrade. We're in the middle of the Netcracker upgrade testing right now, and it's been a lot of work, but it's been handleable, or it's been at least decently going. But we are due to go live in December, so I may all of a sudden just call off the game for like 3 weeks or something like that. That may happen. It's looking like I'm okay, so we're still playing as far as we go, but I'll send out an email if that comes about, just in case you've got to get your Ferdinand fix or something. It might
That's fair.
happen just in case
That's
things go
fair.
bad.
I just want to. So if we've had some small followers, and Kurt, thank you. It's been a fantastic game so far, and I get it. Totally appreciate it. I love playing Open Legend. I love playing Open Legend with all of you guys. And I just want to thank everyone who watches our stuff and actually like follows it and watches it on YouTube too. So I'm gonna end credits here. But again, doing a fantastic job. Everyone's having fun. Totally happy with that. And I get it if we have to suspend. So,
Work always takes precedence, but yeah, we should be.